What's happening, everyone? Welcome to the Season Gaming Bitcast, episode 228. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, joined by the full crew back again to be talking about a lot of things this week, including Modern Warfare 2, Warzone 2, DMZ. We're going to be talking Pokemon. I'm not going to be talking Pokemon, but someone will. We're going to be talking about Pentiment, Somerville, God of War Ragnarok, potentially a disappointment. I don't know. We're going to talk through that. We've got the Game Awards to break down and a few other things as well. But I'm happy to be here. Happy to be back with my brethren here. Mr. The Seven himself. And by the way, for channel members, we have an icon for each of us now ready to go. Test them out and have fun with those today, including the most requested Versus logo for when Travis and Hogue, Hipster Hogue, like to get into their arguments. But the Seven himself, Mr. Rodriguez, is back. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, chat and everybody. I am back. Done with the birthday party. It was a resounding success. We had a good time. Yeah, it was all right.
Chiefs won.
Chiefs won. Yeah. It was good. It was good stuff. A lot of good food. I ate a lot of hot pretzels. Yeah, those soft ones, nacho cheese, was amazing.
The Kansas City Master Chiefs.
Yep.
Classic team.
I'd like them a lot more if that were the case. I'm rather indifferent right now. But anyway, the host of far too many shows to list, who was called a hipster for the first time ever this morning.
Yep.
He's here, the Hogue himself. Good morning, sir.
That's the pre-show, folks. Travis trying to convince me I'm a hipster, which is hilarious to me. Based on my eating preferences, my music preferences, but hey, I appreciate it, Travis. I figure that's just a term of endearment for a San Franciscan.
It just means you're cool. You're cool.
Yeah,
you're little. You know.
As for the only thing that jumped out at me in that intro, Ains, was if we're going to do a breakdown of the Game Awards, I think we're going to be beaten to the punch because I think they already broke down.
Ooh,
coming out hot. And of course, the one, the only, the true hipster of the group, the scooped bagel man himself.
I don't do
the man with the.
You can't call me hipster when I wear a suit every day. You know what I mean? Like, am I? Is that?
No, that's not true at all. Right?
I thought it helps.
Yeah,
you be a hipster.
Isn't that like the uniform of the conformist? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, you see, maybe it used to be, right? If you're actually if you're actually transmitting your image to us from the 50s, perhaps.
Yeah.
But no, now you're actually
man.
As a contrarian with the tie guy. That's why it works for you.
It's true. It's my act of rebellion.
Yeah. That's why you're in a suit and I'm in a hoodie.
Yeah, that's true. We both rebelled against. Are we all hipsters? Is this a oops all hipsters show? This is offensive to me. Anyway, hi, McClunky, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm playing Pokemon, ready to talk about the Game Awards and their decisions that they made there.
The choices. We're ready to talk about the choices they made.
The choices they made.
Yep. And Dan is unbanned.
Suspended for 5 minutes.
Listen, I had 10 minutes yesterday to catch the show live, or last week, and I was like, oh yeah, and then all of a sudden I was like, what is happening? I said I'll ban myself, and I couldn't type anymore. It was fantastic.
It was hilarious. Hogue's got that heavy hammer, you know.
It was just for the humor.
It was great. It was a good time. I enjoyed it.
Well, it's good to be back with you guys. Like I said, chat, good morning. Good to see everyone, or good afternoon. Before we get into the game topics, we do have a question from our regular viewer and commenter, Sardinisms, who asked an interesting question last week that I saved for Dan to come back. And what she asked was, what is the weirdest feature or part or aspect of a game that you've really enjoyed playing? So some type of kind of mini game or something that's not necessarily tied to the core game that you really got into. Travis, you said you had one ready to go. Let's hear it.
Yeah. I really liked that part of South Park Stick of Truth where you go to Canada. You guys play that part of the game?
No, tell us.
All right. Well, if you haven't played that part of the game, I can't really spoil it because it's like a pretty fun reveal of that game. But basically, when you go to Canada in that game, the game changes substantially for just when you're in Canada. And it's basically a way to make fun of Canada, which I'm obviously in favor of. And It's actually like kind of a dope part of the game, and I kind of wish that they would make something like that because I really enjoyed it. So that's mine, is South Park Stick of Truth, Canada segment.
Okay. Pomp in the chat says Gwent, which would have been my first choice, but I don't know if Gwent is weird.
It became a game.
Gwent's just awesome.
Yeah, but there's so many there's so many RPGs in particular that have card games as elements. I don't know if I can use Gwent. Gwent is obviously one of the best parts of The Witcher, which got its announcement of getting its upgrade. They promised it in the year.
Spoilers for later in Bitcast.
I don't know anything about it then.
That one actually became multiple games because there's like the Gwent game that they did standalone, which they revised to actually be possible in PvP, since the original format is basically a PvP
It had a full
mode.
pro league and everything.
Like and then there was games that were Gwent games, so he kind of got his wish there. Thronebreaker is a Gwent game. Yeah.
Gwent is awesome. You know, to me, it's hard to separate it out because I think so many of the games use their mini games or their features, however you want to call them, as at least cycling through their economies now. Because I want to say basically every Yakuza game that does anything with business management, but those actually do at least spiral into your monetary growth and help you buy things. So I don't know whether that counts either. But yes, as it should come as no surprise that the commercial lawyer, entrepreneur, venture capital transactions guy loves it whenever you get to build a business in these video games. So whether it makes sense or not, I love it.
Nice.
Yeah,
mine. Go, Dan. Go.
Mine's basically on the same thing. I played so much Yakuza that, you know, I'm not a huge fan of like these little kind of side ventures normally, but when they tie into the game well, like the ones in Yakuza did. You know, when I first read this question, I read it completely wrong, and I was like, oh yeah, you know what? Like what kind of weird thing like in a game like that would translate into kind of real life? You know, I don't know why I read it that way, but I was like, oh yeah, like, and so like immediately what pops in my head is like GTA 5 and like running people over because I have tremendous road rage. So like that was the first thing that went to my, you know, that popped in my head. So and I thought that was weird. But, you know, maybe it's not. Maybe a lot of people have it. And it's just, you know. But, like, literally, I picture myself. There's been times where I'm, like, driving. And I'm just, like, picturing myself with, like, superpowers from a video game. And I, you know, can, like, take cars, like, telekinesis and just throw them off the road with, like, little to no care of who's in it. You know. So, it's pretty bad. But that's how I read it at first. But, you know, yeah, going back to it, Yakuza.
I kind of like that version better.
What a trip!
Yeah.
We all know that Dan's favorite part of Horizon Forbidden West is the little board game. So,
gosh,
yes, that's just true.
That was my last.
What is that called again? What is it called?
I forgot about it.
Machine Strike, I believe.
Machine Strike, yeah.
Machine Strike. That's right.
Yeah, that was my last trophy because I had to force myself to play like 2 or 3 games just to get it. God, it was rough.
So I'm gonna take us way back. I was trying to think of obscure, and what I thought of was Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast actually had a mini game on its VMU, the little memory unit. Yeah, where you could kind of grow and feed this. It was almost like a cheap play on a Tamagotchi at the time. But yeah, I used to do that, and then I forget what you would even get in the game for it when you plugged back in. I don't even remember. But yeah, it was something great. Minor.
Yeah, and I'm especially in the mood for Sonic stuff because I just keep playing Sonic Frontiers, and it's. I then went and got other Sonic games and put them on my system because I'm like I love Sonic.
Nice.
What happened? Nice. It's revived the love.
All right, so we'll move on to currently playing. Let me get these super chats real quick though before we do that. We got a big one from Don Lionheart right out of the gate here.
That's probably before we actually started at 10:06 a.m. Thank you, Don. Good morning, all. I started seeing a girl in Jacksonville. I live in Orlando, and Bitcast archives have helped me make the 2-hour each way drive go faster. So thanks for the entertainment and the company. That's what we do.
Wholesome.
We bring people together. Is that's the tagline of the Bitcast, I think. So
we got to be better than mid-Florida radio, right?
Yeah, I mean,
right, Don.
Yeah. It's even better because then when he arrives at his girlfriend's place, he has all these video game thoughts in his mind, so he can just ruin the relationship with like really bad,
I thought you were
games
gonna go.
opinions.
No, he impresses her. Do you realize? These
I mean,
various
maybe he
things-
impresses her,
Yeah.
or in my experience, scares her away with all of his video game knowledge and trivia.
That wasn't the video game knowledge doing that, my friend.
Yeah, you haven't been engaged long enough to be this cynical.
Yeah, I mean it's murky. There's a lot of things about me that scare a woman off. You gotta have some serious daddy issues to go with me. So good times. Good times.
I
don't know what that
fiance's
says.
just off
Yeah.
camera.
I was gonna say, yeah, if your fiance's a lot, okay, got it. All right, interesting.
Oh yeah, no, her dad abandoned her. I'm there, man. It's in my, I'm working in my wheelhouse, y'all.
We should have a segment called TMI with Dan and Travis.
I know. What do you guys want me to do as host of this show? I don't even know what I'm supposed to do anymore.
Man, really, my job is to just throw a wrench into the programming each and every week. Just one thing that kind of gets everybody off of their comfort zone, and then we get to dynamically kind of say things that we would normally say on the show. It's great,
There you go.
All right. Thank you, Don. Appreciate it. Glad we could give you some company, and we'll try to get back to normality here. All right. And then Google Man with his weekly €5 super sticker.
Yeah, I think it was like it said like critical hit. I think I saw it in the chat.
Oh, nice.
All right, critical hit.
Yeah.
It's becoming a trend. I like this
Little
super
controller,
sticker trend Google Man's got going. Thank you, brother.
Yeah.
Appreciate you.
Awesome.
Are you
All
sure
right,
Google
guys.
Man and not Googleman?
Ooh,
Googleman.
I don't know.
Yeah, he's
Googleman.
we're friends. Yeah, Googleman. We're familiar with him. He's,
Googleman 81. Yeah, 81.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and segue right back over to currently playing. And Hogue, I'm going to throw it to you right out of the gate. We're going to save our Ragnarok chatter because I know we have some deeper thoughts on that here for the tail end of this segment. But you mentioned Sonic Frontiers. Is it still just pleasing you like it was last week? You having a good time with it still?
Every single time. Now, it might take me a year to beat because what it's taking the place of, and I don't know if you have games like this on your platform of choice, but it's basically the game that I go into and play for 20 minutes if I have 20 minutes, or between games that are going to be, let's just say, as taxing as God of War Ragnarok or anything else that I'm playing long form. So I do it as kind of this spackle between bigger things, and it's excellent. I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Warzone 2.
Yes, please.
So Call of Duty, if you're not aware, season 1 began November 16th, which was, middle of this week.
It's called.
And with it, it launched the Battle Pass, it launched Prestiging, it launched Warzone 2 and the DMZ modes, which are both free to play, by the way. So now you can install kind of the segmented Modern Warfare 2 suite, and you can, even if you don't own Modern Warfare 2, you can log into kind of the main menu and play everything but the campaign and standard multiplayer. But I've been very excited about Warzone 2. We all know that, I love the kind of competitive shooter space. I play a lot of Battle Royale. I have, I think, like 1,000 hours in pub. I've played a ton of Apex. I've played Fortnite's okay, but
The leader.
yeah, I know it's the leader, but it's not the one that I dig. But anyway, so I've been really excited for this. 150 players across a literally gigantic map. One of the biggest game maps I've seen, especially it might be the biggest multiplayer game map I've seen. I mean, it's amazing. And I was very anxious to see if they could make the transition from Warzone to Warzone 2, which kind of revised the mechanics, made it bigger and kind of better, while also feeling more tactical, more like having some PUBG aspects, because PUBG is a little more, I guess, serious would be the word. But I've got to say, guys, I have been addicted to Warzone 2. I'm hugely impressed with it. It's had some technical issues, as you would expect for this, however many tens of millions of people playing this free-to-play launch right out of the gate. So there's been some bugs here and there that they've been fixing rather quickly, I would say. But overall, it is incredibly impressive. So if you can just kind of picture, like, I don't know about you guys, but I was sitting back and thinking about the fact that here's a game in 2022 that is free to play. It offers literally endless amounts of content, which is true, and obviously not just for Warzone, but for many games today. But as a technical achievement, you have 150 players dropping into this massive, massive map. You can play it in 4K, 120 FPS. You can squad up. You can play solo. It has proximity chat, which if you've seen some of the clips on social media have been absolutely hilarious, meaning once you get within a certain range of enemies, you can actually hear each other and talk to each other. So there's all kinds of funny scenarios that have happened.
Love that.
Yes, there are clips of people talking through doors.
Talking through doors, playing music, negotiating. There is what they call an unhinged mode where you can literally join and when you're near someone, you can invite them to join your team and literally bring two teams together and then run out and fight everyone else. There's AI on the map in the DMZ mode. The DMZ mode's a little different, of course, but for Warzone 2, it is just there's car combat and helicopter combat and underwater combat and boats and vehicles, and there's mountains and skyscrapers, and I mean it's so dynamic in the sandbox of what you can do and how many ways you can engage with other players from a competitive standpoint. It's just absolutely incredible. It's incredible. It's kind of the game, I think I said earlier on Twitter earlier this week, that it's the game that like 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when I started playing shooters and whatnot, like I envisioned potentially being possible in the future. You know, like, wouldn't it be amazing if you could just drop 100 plus people or hundreds of people into a map and you could snipe and you could shoot and you could run and you could dive and you can fly a chopper. And, it's just this giant literal war zone, bad pun intended, that is come to fruition. And I'm just amazed with it. It's awesome. It's awesome. It's right up my alley and it's amazing. The DMZ mode of that, just for clarity, is a different mode entirely. It takes place on the same map. You can play it 1, 2, or 3 people. And it combines kind of elements of Warzone, but with elements of just like single player almost, and AI. The whole goal is you land, you try to complete missions on the map, overtake strongholds, find intel, all this stuff, loot. You try to find extra guns and money and stuff, and then you extract. So try and think of like Division 2's Dark Zone or Division's Dark Zone. It's kind of like that, where you can play it. Like I was playing yesterday single player. I was going in, playing by myself, killing AI, picking up stuff, hunting around, sneaking around, and then extracting. And I was having a blast. It was like playing it's almost like playing a kind of PvE/PvP version of like a Wildlands or a maybe even a Breakpoint, like a big kind of open map shooter. But
sounds
it's
like, what's the one in the bayou called? The Hunt? I played a while of.
That's it's very different.
Asymmetric multiplayer, isn't it?
Yes. You can play that I think you can play that single player too, but yeah, it's asymmetrical because you're fighting against like monsters and whatnot.
Player monsters, yeah.
Right, but you're doing no. The Hunt is you've got like a boss out there, and you've got missions to do, and then you've got multiple teams, and you get flagged when people are doing things to get clues to get to the boss. And then
that's the battle royale.
You have to extract out.
It was asymmetric. That's weird.
Okay. It's not a battle royale. That's why I used it as a reference point right here. It's you've got like a PvE mission that you're trying to do in front of other teams, and then those other teams can get in your way.
Got it.
Gotcha. Yeah, it's so you're supposed to. It's 3-player squads in DMZ, but you don't have to squad fill. So like I go into the lobby and I just turn squad fill off and I play by myself. And I've played maybe like 8 to 10 matches of DMZ, and I've only encountered other real players twice. So it's really up to you how much you want to engage. It's like anything else. You can stay on the outskirts, you can go to smaller towns, or you can run straight into the major city and just shoot at everything. But the AI are formidable. There's all kinds of different missions and things to find. It's just the combination of Warzone with the competitive kind of straight multiplayer, and DMZ where it's like a mix and kind of you can play it almost like a single player game. And all of that is free to play. Sweet. You don't need to buy anything. You don't need the battle pass. All the battle pass does is give you cosmetics and stuff. It's absolutely incredible. I'm blown away by it. It's great.
I'm glad you're liking it so much. I was watching you on Twitter. Yeah. And you had the tweet that was like, this is my dream and it's free. It's crazy.
It's nuts. I mean, because you think about what I think about, because I'm a weirdo, is you think about the development money and time that went into building this, right? You're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars and engine work that create a map this big that supports this much combat, and you think about all the support stuff that goes into a full cross play and, everything. And it's just obviously the game, Call of Duty, we don't have to talk about how much money it makes, right? Even being free to play, Warzone makes, an insane amount of money. But it is still just amazing that you don't have to engage with that aspect if you want. There's no trick here, right? Call of Duty is so big now, and it makes so much money that if you're someone who just wants to play Warzone for free, you're not missing out on anything. You're not at a disadvantage, right, in the game because you're playing it for free. You can just jump in and have a ball.
That's the beauty of microtransactions that a lot of people miss when you go, oh, it's $80,000 to buy everything in the store or whatever. But it's like, well, you've got a zero barrier of entry to actual play.
Yeah. It's $80,000 of stuff that you don't need.
Right.
Because it's like skins and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. My favorite example there is Path of Exile, which has been going for like 8 years now or something.
You can play forever.
You can play it forever, and every single microtransaction is cosmetic only. They've never had anything that impacts gameplay. It's amazing. Love that. So anyway, I won't go on about Warzone, but I'm telling you, whether you enjoy Battle Royale with friends or solo, or you enjoy like a big open world shooter, I would try DMZ. Even if you're not like someone like you, Dan, who's not a competitive MP guy, I would install it, play DMZ, just mess around with it. You might be surprised at how much fun you have just playing in that sandbox. It's cool.
Dan's got me playing Breakpoint now.
Like, yeah, and that's kind of like my reference point. Like when I thought about the world and the map and what you can do, like Wildlands was the first game that came to my mind. And you can play it with others if you want to. You don't have to. It's interesting. So anyway,
so maybe.
I have nothing to add because I didn't download it, but I'm glad that you did, Ains, because it's going to be one of the biggest games of the year, and it's good that somebody's talking about it on this.
So now that it's out, it's the first time since I began looking at it every week, which is, I don't know, 2 years ago, that Fortnite has been dethroned as the #1 game on Xbox. Modern Warfare 2 is now #1. Yeah,
for now.
For now, yeah, for now, yes. But I've never seen Fortnite. I think I joked weeks ago that I've never seen Fortnite out of that #1 spot. Like they might as well just start at #2 because it's always Fortnite, and it's the first time I've ever seen a game pass it as #1 on Xbox Live since I've been watching.
I will be interested in longevity and support as I always am, but
of course,
it won't be mine. It's just not my thing. So I'm glad that you're checking it out.
Yeah,
it's on my list.
Game
I'm gonna play it this within the next week for sure. I need to play it.
Hit me up if you want to play. Yeah, I'll play DMZ or Warzone. It's awesome, man. All right, guys, it's time. Talk to me about Pokemon.
Are you going to load up Marvel Snap so you can get a game?
Yes. So if you weren't here with us last week, we joked that I have never had anything to add on Pokemon. So I have not played Marvel Snap. I installed it this morning. It's not a joke. I played the very first introductory kind of match. And I'm loading it up right now.
All right.
And I'm going to play and try and learn how to play Marvel Snap while you guys talk to us about Pokemon.
In a couple months, we're going to be able to directly play each other. So Travis can show us what's what and whatnot.
Yeah. That'll be the whole show on Sundays.
Travis
got the platinum.
4 guys playing.
Finally got the platinum, guys.
Oh, my God. Did you?
Yeah.
All right. It's teaching me about energy. I don't know what energy is.
You're about to find out, bro. If you have the energy.
It uses the Hearthstone model. And Travis is out there playing Pokemon, ready to go.
And here you go. Here we go.
He's proving it. Look at this.
He's playing Pokemon. Look at this. Look, I'm going to move him. He's the host now.
All right.
What's up, guys? I'm Ainsley Bowden, the world's greatest Pokemon champion. And we're going to talk about Pokemon Violet and Pokemon Scarlet. Hogue, which team are you on? Are you on Scarlet or Violet?
We got a Scarlet copy in Hogue House.
Fantastic. I am Violet, so we can have a violent disagreement. Violet.
Oh,
and by the way, this would be the show if I were in charge, just to be clear.
It's just a bit, guys. Don't panic.
All right. I will say it doesn't run great. Let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah.
Like that's sort of the thing people are talking about online. It doesn't run great. Game Freak famously is not good at optimizing their games. Pretty much across the board forever. This is a problem that they have.
I will grant that.
Yeah. It is also clear that the Switch is underpowered. It was underpowered when it came out in 2017. It still is. However, I don't think that that's the barrier that's making this game run as poorly as it does. I think it 100% is the software engineers that made it. It's just my opinion. But anyway.
Well, I mean, the one thing that jumps out at me is that they don't seem to be doing the aggressive downscaling. That is the thing that works the best on Switch.
Yes.
So you're getting these frame hitches, which are really annoying.
They are.
You got frame hitches throughout the game, whereas what you have
slow fade thing when it goes between shots and menus and stuff. Yeah,
right.
It's real weird.
So whereas with Xenoblade Chronicles 3 as an example, you'll just have it dissolve into like pixel fireworks and be like, it's that's a shape of something. You know what it is. You don't just hit it with your sword. Yeah. Pokemon's just like we're not doing any kind of dynamic anything that I can tell, and so it just has these hitches all over the place. It does. Yeah. It does. I'm going to come to this game's defense, by the way. So hang on.
Yeah, I'm also sort of coming to the defense as well because I wanted to start off with the performance because I think it's the thing that if you don't know about Pokemon, you have heard about it. Like it's the thing in the news right now. And to me, when I play the game, it is something that I notice. It's something that annoys me. It's something I'm disappointed in. But it's not the thing that defines the game to me. And I've sort of just been playing it and going, yeah, this seems like a competent game with serious problems with optimization that don't really ruin the experience for me personally. And so that's been my experience. But everything else, like the thing I will applaud them for is they are finally doing all the things players have been asking for like a decade, right? They're giving the open world, they're giving the dynamic Pokemon couching where you are out in the world and seeing things and throw your Pokeball, and they're doing
finally the sandwich construction that you needed in Pokemon. Do you like sandwiches? Are you a fan of bread and then having things in between it? Dan, I'm looking at you, buddy. If you like sandwiches, this is the Pokemon for you.
That's right. The sandwich plays a very important role in the story, and then you can make them after that because your mom taught you well her ways of the
sandwiches abound. Picnics, sandwiches, get excited.
Right. Yeah. And multiplayer, which is probably when the game performs worse, but it is in the game and it's cool. I've been able to play with my fiance who is on #Team Scarlet, and it's a good time. So Hogue, thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are the same as yours. Now I want to put a little tilt on this, right? So Hogue House has 2 young girls in it, and I awoke each morning throughout the Pokemon week being told that it was Pokemon week and exactly how many days it was to Pokemon. So that is, I am not going to be unbiased in this. Because I will say every single moment, including right now, where she's in the other room playing it. When she woke this morning, we said, "Well, what do you want to do this Sunday?" She said, "Pokemon. I would like to play a lot of Pokemon." And she is currently playing her Switch on her lap while watching Pokemon, the television show, and she is in a dream state.
Fantastic.
So this is Pokemon. This is what we had thought it would be in terms of taking kind of the Arceus experiment and saying, let's bring it to mainline. And there are such cool things in this Pokemon that you talk about Aang saying this is the dream and riding in helicopters and things. Like the start of this game is setting you up, and then what do you want to do? You can kind of see almost Elder Scrolls type pathways that they've set up to do different things. What do you want to do as a Pokemon person? Do you want to go hit gyms? Do you want to go see gigantic Pokemon in the desert? What do you want to do? And that is that's the dream. Right. And yeah, it has major performance issues. I tend to blame the Switch as much as the engineers. Obviously, you can do better with the Switch, but it seems like it's a trick. Every single person that talks about porting to the Switch talks about you got to do some black magic. And it's apparent Game Freak doesn't have the black magic. So I'm not going to defend them on that. But what they do have is some cool designs, some great ideas for how to advance the Pokemon ball. And I will also say this. This is the kind of the Pokeball, yeah. This is the this is kind of the nature of the internet. You see it with a Bethesda release. You see it here with Pokemon, whatever. I am not having remotely the same experience of everybody having their arm knocked off or their head not rendering or whatever it is. You take the 0.3% and you multiply it out by millions and millions and millions of Pokemons, and then you get this kind of notion of it's all broken all the time. It is not all broken all the time.
I also have a feeling most of those clips are from multiplayer when somebody else is lagging out and running somewhere, and then it's making their body do like a weird thing.
Yeah.
Which I think some of the clips are being presented disingenuously as like single player footage, but it doesn't matter. That shouldn't be in the game. But
it shouldn't be. It's not right. And like they have the slow load in, but you can tell it's a moving water, it's a bridge, and it's a background. It's like, oh yeah, it's not gonna like that. Like you got it right on the corner when you get that clip, and it's not right. Shouldn't release that way. I get it. The experience of playing it is not that annoying. It has the frame rate hitches, which I never love, but the actual game is. To me, it's really smartly designed. It is going in the direction I want Pokemon to go in. And it's got a lot of new ideas. I have no idea why the legendary that we ride around on in Scarlet has giant wheels on both the front and back that it doesn't use, but these aren't my design choices. Outside of that, I think it's excellent. And the one thing I would say, and I always hate this, right? This is the it's for kids kind of notion. It doesn't have to be for kids, and it doesn't mean that kids have to get something that is less than. But I will tell you, at least in what it has hit, whether it's the music, the designs, the elements, the dream aspect, the fantasy, it is exactly what my Pokemon loving daughter wanted, and she has been beaming for 2 days. So I have to take that into account.
Yeah.
So Lucius has some chat saying it gets worse once you get to the big cities. I don't know where you guys are if you want to comment on that.
I've seen the big city. I've seen the big city. It is worse for sure. Yeah, it's a problem. There's no way around it. Like if you're reviewing Pokemon, you have to talk about how bad it performs. It's definitely a part of it. I don't know if it's as game defining as some people are making it out to be. It certainly has not been my experience. I'm sure some people have had worse experiences. It's also worth mentioning, I have the Nintendo Switch OLED, which I think does run it a little bit better and than the vanilla version. So
we have a launch day Switch from 5 years ago.
Launch day Switch. So I can tell you my launch day Switch wouldn't have run it. I can try it. There you go. He got Nightcrawler. Fantastic card.
He's on his way.
Never stops being useful. Yeah, like my launch day Switch started to show degrading issues actually because of Cooking Mama Cookstar. So which I told you guys bricked my Switch. Yeah. So it certainly wouldn't run on that well at all. So I'm assuming some people are having experiences that are kind of like that old Switch that's starting to lose its luster. I don't have that problem. I will say this. For people who are asking for a Switch Pro, and I don't think it's going to happen for a multitude of reasons, but for people asking for it, I get it. And I think that a lot of the problems that they're experiencing right now would be alleviated if there was a stronger option for you to play this game on.
And I'll say, I think it's almost a certainty that Switch Pro is next year.
I think Switch Pro got scrapped. That's my theory. I think it was supposed to come out, and I think it got scrapped. And I think now that we live in an era with a pending recession where the competitors are doing really stupid things like releasing $600 products, I think Switch really likes its positioning, and I don't think that they care too much about power as long as you can give experiences that Hoag's daughter and people like her enjoy, and that they're just going to laugh all the way to the bank with their low-powered product. I think they like their positioning.
I'll counter with saying the Switch sales are slowing massively. I mean, you can watch it happen in real time. So I think that's when you hit the Pro button.
But do software sales slow massively? I think that's the question. If Pokemon sold way worse than it should have, given how many units of Switch there are out there, then you're looking at it like, okay, we need to do something to improve the hardware.
No, Scarlet and Violet is going to be a freaking vault buster. It's going to be there.
Yeah, exactly.
It's going to compete with Animal Crossing and Smash.
And that's why I think they won't make a Switch Pro, because they already have such a huge install base and they want to make as much software on that as they can. And as soon as they release a Switch Pro, developers are just going to start developing for that platform, because why wouldn't you, right? And then your install base goes.
Can I tell you a secret? I can't promise you that Scarlet and Violet aren't programmed for the Switch Pro and its spec sheet that we don't know yet.
I hope you're right. I would love to see Switch Pro. I just think if I'm Nintendo, I'm looking at my positioning as being the cheapest product on the market that can do stuff like I can do. Even the Meta Quest, which is, really popular in the same demographic because it's very affordable. They're blowing that out of the water by a lot. Fourth best selling console of all time. I don't know if that's when you abandon the platform. And I don't know what Nintendo's thinking is.
I don't think they're going to abandon the platform. I think it's a legitimate pro. And I see people in the chat being like, well, I don't think it's better to have one that runs it better. It's like, well, assume the baseline doesn't move. This is the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet that you have, right? And the next one will be the same. And then there's just one that runs it smoother. I don't really see how you're worse off there. And I suspect that Nintendo can work one up now with 10 years of difference between the chipset it's using in the Switch and now, where they can get it at a reasonable price at the pro level.
Yeah, my worry would be that as soon as people start developing for the Switch Pro, the Switch versions effectively don't run at all, because a lot of effort has been put into making the Switch versions run. And I think that once developers start developing with Switch Pro kind of hardware in mind, you're going to have a situation with Cyberpunk where, the Xbox One and PS4 versions were like unplayable. And that means that your install base that has all those old Switches effectively can't really work in the same space for what you're developing software for. I think that's a problem. And that's why people say that, old platforms hold software developers back, which I don't think is true generally in the marketplace, but it certainly can be true in the Nintendo market, where it's a walled garden and they're kind of deciding what the constraints are. So that would be my concern.
I don't think it's true at all, honestly. And I think if you've got audiences that can work with what comes out on the Switch, the only thing you have to mandate is it functions on the Switch. You can't release a Switch Pro game unless it has a functional capability on the Switch. Is that going to be the best place to play? No, but it's also going to be. I mean, if the Pro comes out next year, which I think it will, you're looking at the Switch being 6 years old. I mean, it's essentially a generation anyway.
7, right?
I don't know.
I think it's 7 right now.
No, it's 5. It's 5
2015, right? Oh, 2017. Okay, gotcha. 5 years.
Yeah. And I know just to add to this, I know in the if you look at Nintendo's planned financials through next fiscal year, which they did release, they show a downturn, right? So which I believe, if I recall correctly, because I did a video on this, if you look into it, it shows a hardware investment. So I mean, all the chips are aligning where they're clearly thinking about next gen. And what that's going to mean for their kind of, fiscal results. But I don't see why. I think someone in the chat say, you can't abandon everyone on the Switch. That's never going to happen. At least I don't think, given the success of the Switch. You just release whatever the next iteration is, whether it's a Switch Pro or I think you have to kind of keep the Switch because of its success name in there somehow. Although the Wii U would maybe beckon.
That's what I'm just
going to throw a U on it.
Don't throw a U on it.
Nintendo does some stuff, man. I would never bet on what. It should
clearly be called Super Switch. It matches their history.
But I think it'll play all Switch games as they are today, right? If you want to
call it the Switch U, it will not be the same thing as the Switch. It'll have a completely
Nintendo
different
will call it the Switch 358/2, and it'll
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Nintendo didn't even just abandon the Switch. I could see them doing that because it's Nintendo. I can't predict what they're going to do. It wouldn't make sense, but I could see them doing it.
That you can't account for crazy. Any prognostications can't account for wacky.
I mean, dude, they all but abandoned the Wii. I mean, the Wii U was not the successor to the Wii. That wasn't a Wii, plus a super Wii.
It's true.
Yeah.
It was their interim is what it was.
As soon as I saw the slowdown in the hardware sales, I said, okay, I think that's what they were waiting for.
And they seemingly knew it was coming. Like you could see it. Like I said,
they prepped it.
Look at their numbers. Yeah. So back to Pokemon. I think I wasn't listening to every detail because I was focused on my match.
No, that's what you were supposed to do.
Yeah, but so sounds like guys are enjoying it, kids are enjoying it. Obviously, it's going to be a sales mega hit. Outside of kind of the technical things people have brought up, seems to be everything that everyone thought it was going to be. Correct?
Well, I think we all thought it would run better, but Arceus ran better. I mean, just as an example, Arceus runs better than Scarlet and Violet.
It was a different game. It didn't have the multiplayer problem or the same kind of open world areas. It was all that was people's complaint, right? That it was empty.
Yeah, it's barren. It was the test. Yeah. Arceus is the test, but it worked really well. And their reach exceeded their grasp, which is fine. But you wish it would run better. But in terms of what it is as a game, like the designer type stuff, and rather than the technical stuff, I think it's a fantastic step forward.
Cool. Love to hear it. Well, guys, my Marvel Snap, I think I'm on my way. So I finished all the intro things, and I just played my first actual match, apparently, which I
Did
won
you
by
win?
1 point.
There it
1
is.
point.
Nice.
I
There's
won
that
20.
dopamine hit.
I won 2 out of 3, obviously, but I won 20-19 in the middle row. So now I'm at this main screen. I guess this is my deck.
You can make some
I guess
deck.
yeah,
Get rid of
just a couple.
Quicksilver. He's lame.
Quicksilver's lame. Okay, you're out of here, Quicksilver. Hogue said
Yeah,
you
he's not
suck.
good. No, he's not good.
So a couple questions, just for the new Marvel Snap players. Obviously, there's the stuff you can buy and all that, but with your deck, like, is there some type of resource somewhere which shows you how many cards are in the game and what they do?
No, it's a mystery.
Yeah, no,
Really?
The hit is
Yeah.
much is like opening the pack and seeing what it is. So in fact, as you go up your collector's levels, they'll have mystery variant. They won't even tell you what it is, and then it's like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, I don't even know
Okay.
if there's been a cataloging of every card in the game. They're
I
adding
wouldn't-
more, but I find I'm like level 800 or something like that, and I still am finding cards that I'm like, geez, I didn't know that. I still don't have Spider-Man. I know he's in the game. I don't have Spider-Man, and I'm level 800 something. So it's completely random sometimes, which is kind of cool.
Interesting. So it's more of a surprise to kind of learn everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, to make the
Um,
game work, they actually have a screen that pops up if your opponent is using something you've never seen before. It'll go reveal, and then it'll tell you what that thing does.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I will say I think they've done a good job of making sure that none of these random cards that you get in packs are huge parts of the meta, because it seems like even with all the crazy cards out there, people mostly use, the main cards that you get through the season pass and whatnot. So
Gotcha. And then I saw the upgrades cards. They go upgrade rarity. Does that do they get additional abilities? And is the second part of that question is, can there be multiple cards of one character that have different abilities? So are there like 2 Punishers that have different abilities, or are all Punishers always
it's designed to be sight read, right? So you don't have to pop into all the cards. So the Punisher is always going to have damage that is based on the opponents in that field when he shows up, and then there will be however many Punishers they want to have. And then you can upgrade each of those, but they're all what we would call cosmetics, right? So you have a card that's lame, then they can break out of the frame, then they can become 3D. They have the 3D background, then they can animate that. Animate in quotes,
it's really bad. I really wish they would do more
procedural waviness. Then I think after the animation, they get a shiny logo, I believe.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
And then an animated frame, and then if you level that up, then you get to create a variant clone of the card and then start leveling that up. But to answer your first question, Ains, it's 100% cosmetic. The only gain you get from leveling them up that actually affects gameplay is that you level up your player level and you can unlock new cards. That is like the one thing where technically you could pay money to have an impact on gameplay, because you could effectively just like raise all of your card level and then more quickly unlock cards. But I mean, I'm level 800. I've only bought the season passes, haven't spent any other money, so I'm feeling like you kind of don't need to. So
right. Okay. No, I feel the same way you do, Travis, which is like, well, when I really analyze it, you get some kind of benefit, at least in variability, from going up the levels, but it's not real.
It's not,
you can work with credits, like the only objection I have to Marvel Snap at all is I wish they had some obscenely high, gold payment that you could make for the season pass. I just don't like it when you're completely locked out of an option on one of these types of games.
Yeah.
So
I bought both of the season passes for
which is 10 a pop. So 10 a month, 120 a year is a bit high for Marvel Snap.
Or is it?
Yeah. So is the last question I have on it is because believe it or not, I used to play a game many years ago, because I'm old, called Doom Trooper, which was a very competitive card game. There's actually a Steam version of the game that someone created that you can play today. But the big question from my mind goes is there a limit on the number of cards you can have a deck? And is there a limit on the number of each person you can have on a deck? And is there strategy? One of each. Okay.
No, I have one. Yep.
Okay. But there's no limit on how many cards you can have in your deck.
12.
12 total. Are you talking about in your collection?
No, in your deck to play.
Oh yeah, your deck it's always 12. Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's all I need to know. That's okay. That's interesting because
You're
like
going to see a good chunk of your cards. Yeah, it's a very interesting game that way.
yeah, the
Deck
card. So the
building
card game I
request
used to
random
play.
rotation.
What made it really competitive is the sense that there were a lot of different cards. First of all, but you had to choose whether you want a big deck, right? And you have all these different features and stuff, but your odds of drawing one were lower, right? So the competitive decks were a lot smaller, but only 12 makes it like you're going to see most of your characters every game.
Exactly.
Yes, you can set up real combos a lot of the time.
Okay.
And then you have a theme, right? So I've been what have I been playing? I ran a deck that was all Guardians of the Galaxy, which is funny because what they do is they themed their own powers. So for the Guardians, for instance, they each have different costs, but outside of Star-Lord, Star-Lord too. They're doing the same thing, which is guess where somebody else is going to put somebody. And if you guess where somebody else is going to put somebody, and you're right, you get an outsized return on investment for your mana cost, right?
Yeah.
And so
there's a Magic player right there.
Well,
mana cost.
Most of these games are running on mana. And so like that's fun, but it's too high variance. So you just kind of mess around with different things, and you can do it as much as you want because it doesn't matter whether you win or lose. For the most part, you can tell, and you get better at betting. And yeah, it's fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
And they add like it's not only cards. They added like with Wakanda, they added like 4 more locations, and it's the locations that really change how you play.
Oh yeah. Locations are everything, and especially in this past week.
Right. Well, they had the one day where it was like just every single game had the one where the best card challenges all other cards.
Yeah. The fight land, and then yesterday they had the death one where you play a card there and it dies, and so destruction decks were just feasting. Yeah. A lot of interesting stuff.
That's cool.
You have a lot of fun. So and then you can have a bunch of different decks. So I have a just upgrade these deck where I'm just playing cards that I'm just trying to get my collector's level high, and it's just all grays. It's like, let's see if we can make something out of this.
Well, I'll check it out a little more. I don't know. Like I said, I don't mess with mobile games, no matter what they are much. But card games like that do interest me, so I'll check it out more.
Great for football games. Fun. So much downtime.
True.
So I didn't get to talk last week because for 2 weeks I was under embargo for Pentiment. But let me just quickly mention, I know it's been talked about a lot this week, and not probably too much to cover on it. But my review and video review are out. A lot of good feedback. Thank you, everyone who commented or watched. I gave Pentiment an 8. As Travis knows well, when you're reviewing a game prior to embargo, you never know where you're going to land, right? You don't know what other people are thinking of the game. And I didn't talk to anyone else who was playing it while I was playing it. So I gave it an 8. I really enjoyed the arc of the game. So we've talked in DMs about this because I was talking to Hogue about it. But like, it's definitely a slow game, right? It is a game that is entirely conversational. You read the entire game. That's all it is. There's no game.
It's a visual novel, folks. We do not need to get around the corner here. People are not using the phrase for Pentiment. Pentiment is a straight up visual novel with choices and locations, just like any other good visual novel.
I think not calling it a visual novel is a strategic decision.
Oh, certainly. But it was like as soon as I got in there and I was like, oh, I know these beats and I know this pattern.
Yeah, it is. And but the arc of it, what makes it kind of fun and unique is there's 3 acts. They cover 25 years of time, and the same families and people in the town are involved through those 3 acts, right? And so you see kids grow up, you see people die, you see things move on, things change, seasons change, buildings change, etc. And it was just a lot of fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I love the conversational aspect and the decision-making aspect, and it's clear that there are different ways you can approach things. I am thinking about, I clicked to start a second playthrough. I just haven't gotten far at all, but I'm interested to see, if I don't want to, no spoilers here, but if I do certain things differently, what that looks like. So anyway, really fun game. I'm glad. I was surprised to see how much praise it got. I guessed prior to launch that it was going to be in the kind of mid 70s meta. That's what I was guessing. And I thought I was pretty high on it. And then multiple sites, in the 9s, a few 10s. IGN gave it a 10. Travis, I don't know what you guys are doing over there. And I blame you for all things IGN because clearly you're responsible for IGN.
Evaluating your point totals. I got in so much trouble for that tweet. I still have comments coming from that tweet.
I thought the tweet was hilarious.
Just joking around with my friends.
I thought it was funny.
It's just people having opinions. You know, Leanna's a good reviewer. She really liked the game. You know, more power to her.
Here's the issue I have with it, right? So I haven't beaten it. I've played it for a few hours.
And it's about 20 hours long. It's a long game. It's longer than people think.
That's visual novels.
I was gonna say, Travis, I had the exact same response. It's like, that's a visual novel.
Yep. Visual novels are about 20 hours, pretty much all.
But I think when people looked at it and what you were doing, they're like, oh, this would be like an 8 to 10 hour game. And as I played through it, I'm like, this is definitely not an 8 to 10 hour game. It's long.
Yeah, I mean, as soon as you know it's a visual novel, you're like, okay, no way, not gonna be 8 hours.
As soon as I figured out what the game was, it was like, oh, that's the choice that probably doesn't matter, and here's a choice that matters, and okay, all right. I played these. Visual novel is almost entirely based on its writing, right? I mean, right? Pentiment has good visuals. It has interesting visuals, at least, but they're playing around with low budget type stuff. They're almost entirely based on their writing. And to me, to get a 10 on one of these, you have to be doing just absolutely masterful work. And I haven't seen that in Pentiment in its first, I don't know what I've played, 4 or 5 hours. We'll see where it goes. You know, the long arc of history. And I said this to you in DMs, Ains, and we won't go into spoilers, but certainly I think the subject matter and how it treats with it is going to be more attractive to a certain segment of writers that are probably more inclined to give it high marks.
I know what you mean by that. I think that's probably true to a degree, as I told you in DMs. It does. I would agree with you that I think the game, especially for a game, compared to what we see in some other things we'll talk about, is generally written pretty well.
Yes, it is.
And I think that and I think that the arc, as I told you, I think the arc that it takes eventually surprised me a bit, because it dives into a few topics later on in the game that I didn't expect, and I was like, oh, okay, which is good. Yeah, cool. Although it's combined, and I put this in my review, it's combined with a third act that, in my opinion, is too slow. The third act kind of drags a bit compared to one.
That is
2.
a visual novel. My God.
But it culminates.
The bastards finally did it.
But it culminates well. And the ending,
you know what's interesting, Hogue? We haven't talked about this, but
why would you interrupt me mid-sentence to say, you know what's interesting, Hogue?
Well, because we were talking about visual novels. You know, so. I was gonna relate it.
You go on, Travis. We could just have a talk down here. All right. You know what to do here. Don't worry about it.
I was gonna say, you know, it's kind of.
I feel usually when you interject, you're interjecting about the point currently being made by someone, not a completely side point.
It was something Hogue and I were co-commenting on about what you were saying, which is what I was going to say is that, like, it's interesting how much Xbox has sort of become a bastion for visual novels on the Xbox platform, which Xbox platform has had the least visual novels by far. And I love visual novels, so I usually go to PlayStation and PC and Switch and other mobile as well. Yeah. I go to mobile for Switch, and it's interesting to me that they're sort of using Game Pass to get Xbox players playing visual novels, which I think is kind of cool. So I was just going to say that, Ains, because you strike me as the type of person who would not play visual novels. And I've tried to get you to play visual novels before, unsuccessfully.
You've tried to get me to play Ace
Attorney, which is a visual novel. Yeah.
That's not trying to get me to play visual novels. That's trying to get me to play one game.
Well, I'm trying to get you to play one game. I'm trying to get you to play one game, which will lead you to play visual novels. If you
Ace Attorney has more gameplay than like a standard visual novel, and like more gameplay than Pentiment.
Yeah, a lot of the most popular ones do. Danganronpa also has kind of a similar amount of.
Well, I was going to go with the 999 stuff, but yeah.
Typically not my area for sure.
Well, no, to me, I like an Ains 8 for a visual novel is pretty high praise, in my opinion. I wouldn't have expected you to give Pentiment an 8. So that's why when you said it was an 8, I was like, okay, I can get why Leanna, or the IGN reviewer, gave it a 10, because she's a visual novel person, like loves strategy games and visual novels and those sorts of games. The slower pace, the less gameplay is sort of her zone.
But I'm a guy that loves narrative, and I have to like kind of reserve to see where it goes and what it does. But it's so kind of, it's not even slow. It's just talking about things that maybe don't matter to the overall aspects of what it's going to tell as a story. Here's the problem I have, right? A visual novel competes not just with games for me. Visual novel competes with novels. A visual novel competes with movies or stories that are otherwise told. And so what you got in Pentiment, I'm a pretty avid reader of like historical fiction and Ken Follett and Pillars of the Earth and these kinds of things. I'm sitting here, I'm playing Pentiment. It's like, okay, well, this is your Dollar Tree version of that. This is your discount store version of like real type of novels in this historical fiction genre. And maybe it spins things around, or maybe it's people's first exposure to that kind of storytelling, but it's still superficial enough to be a video game to me. And I hope it does more. And like I said, I'm 5 hours in, I think. But
did you get to Act 2 yet?
No, I'm at the tail end, Act 1.
Okay.
And so sounds like it gets more substantial, right, Ants?
Yeah, I think everybody, what I'm hearing online is people really love Act 2.
Act 2 really expands upon it, yes.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. And I am, in some respects, I'm the wheelhouse for this. Like, I really do. You know, I love those books. I love reading that. And we'll see. It's significantly more, I don't know. It has significantly more large thoughts than I feel safe usually giving to game developers. And that might be my own biases. But it's like, well, we'll see. Travis, it's fine. That's why I say it might be my own biases.
Yeah.
I don't trust y'all very much on these kinds of topics.
It gets bigger.
You say game developers, not game critics, right?
No, not game critics.
Okay.
No, critics I have my own beefs with, obviously.
You have your critics, you have your beefs with everyone in the industry. I've read your Twitter. I've been
because he's a hipster.
He's a hipster. Yeah, he's got to be, you know.
I don't know what the point of being in social media or going out there with thoughts is if you're not just going to be honest and talk to people about your thoughts about these things. Yeah, I don't think IGN gave too many good 10s in the last 10 days. Yeah. What can I say?
I mean, you can be honest and a dick. You know what I mean? Like those things are not.
But I don't. Exclusive. I'm always reasonable minds can differ.
You're fine. Doki Doki is also good, I want to say, and you should play that.
Doki Doki. I hear a lot of people talk about it. I just don't
really
think it's for me. I just don't think it's for me.
You're gonna think it's not for you for like the first couple hours.
And then Doki Doki Literature Club is mean.
Oh damn, it gets crazy. Yeah, Ains, I'm really happy that you liked that game. And by the way, I predicted that Hogue would like it on a previous episode of this podcast. Remember?
You did?
Was like, I predicted he would love it actually. So I think if
right
Hogue if Hogue ends up giving it a 9 or better in his brain, then I think I win that particular bet. We'll see. We'll see.
I'm reserving for it. I don't see it right now. You said 8 Ains, and I felt 8. Yeah, but
I gave it an 8. Yeah, and
if it does some stuff with the story that surprises me, or I think is really impactful, then it'll do.
But Ains gave it an 8. To me, Ains 8 on a visual novel, I think that might be a Hogue 9.
Right, because I'm a narrative. Yeah, if you're like
a narrative guy who likes visual novels already, you're already past the weirdness of it being a visual novel. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think I actually foresee Hogue giving it an 8 too. Because I think that you will get into more of the stuff we've talked about, but I think the complaints I have you'll also have.
All right, I will see. I'm going to keep playing it most definitely.
Yeah, we'll circle back on this one and see.
Although honestly, Norco has kind of taken my
Norco,
my kind of shiny squirrel. I was like, ooh.
That game's cool. I also picked that one up. I'm my situation on Pentiment is I'm super behind on games, but I did finish my most recent review on Friday, so I'm a free agent now, and I'm really excited to play Pentiment. I got to catch up on Call of Duty.
If Ragnarok would just come around, I could move on to hitting Pentiment harder. Damn it.
Ragnarok is weirdly at the bottom of my I'll get to it kind of list.
It's like not weirdly at all, Travis. I recommend
it. I need to play it, but like after the first 5 hours or so, I was like, I'm good. I'll wait on this one. I'll go back to it later. So
you did you got it. You got Ragnarok.
All right, well, hold on. We're getting to Ragnarok, but I wanted to make sure there's any other games because you mentioned Norco. I also wanted to ask if any of you are playing Somerville, which finally released from Jump Ship this week. So anything else we want to touch on before we get to Ragnarok. And when we get to Ragnarok, I want to start with Dan because Dan wasn't here last week for our kind of preliminary conversation.
Dan's the only one that's seen Ragnarok. We're gonna let him loose.
Yeah, he's the only one who beat the whole game, and he wasn't here to talk about it. I guess the only other games I'm playing is I'm going back and trying to finish up some other games, and I'm also playing Grounded again. I find for some reason the game just keeps pulling me back in. So yeah, I got to get around to Call of Duty. I got to play with you, Ains, preferably. Got to play that one. Got to do
jump in.
Yeah.
So the Black Friday sales are on both of the platforms right now, and so I picked up eight or nine games that slipped through the cracks or whatever. One of them, speaking of visual novels that I'm really enjoying, is goofy as hell, is a full motion video game from Square Enix called The Centennial Case that came out, I think, in May or June. And it is a visual novel. It's an Ace Attorney. If you imagine all the Ace Attorney scenes are full motion video. And it is exactly as ridiculous as that. I'm currently solving a case about whether a mummy killed someone. And it makes my day.
Classic.
It makes my day. Square Enix tried to sell it for too much here in the West, at least. But on the Black Friday sale, I was like, yep, sign me up. That was one that I had looked at in May and said, it's what?
Which one's this?
The Centennial Case.
The Centennial Case. Okay.
Yeah, go check it out. It is ridiculous. And you are essentially a mystery writer, and you are solving ridiculous mysteries over the course of 100 years of this single family's situation.
Wow. I do like that you have a knack of finding these types of games, Hogue, that I would not have heard about otherwise, which is awesome. I don't mean that sarcastically. No, it's fine.
I'm not going to recommend it to any given person because it's got a very Japanese melodramatic approach to all this. But my goodness, if that's your bag or you can otherwise enjoy it, play it on dubbed. They'll all sound like anime characters. Oh, it's a good time.
Nice. Dan, you said you're playing PGA, which I've been playing on the side too. It's like my relaxing game. How are you enjoying it?
It's great, man. We played a bunch of Top Golf yesterday. I wish they were more Top Golf games, but this is basically one in one place, which is fine because it's Vegas. But otherwise it's been fantastic. Having a good time. It's super relaxing. At the same time, it's kind of nerve-wracking. Like when you miss that putt by like 1 inch, and like I'm like literally hanging off the couch, and my wife is like, "What is wrong with you?" I'm like, "I'm trying to make it go in the hole." I love that. So it's super, but it's super fun. Home. My sons,
putting's a pain.
Home. Yeah, but my kids are, they had a good time. We played last night, a few rounds of it, and they really had a good time with it. Nice. They went and downloaded it, so it's good. I mean, I'm gonna probably be playing that quite a bit until I don't know. Witcher 3 comes out. So.
It's really good.
Yeah.
You can play. I don't know if this is on the list, Ains. I'm sorry, I didn't do my homework. Are we talking about Second Sons at all, or Midnight Suns at all?
We can.
All right. I'm going to try to get Dan to try Midnight Suns. This is my goal for the episode.
Nice. All right. Let's circle back on that one. Let me. Real quick before they get to the super chats and Ragnarok, Somerville. So I've only played like 30 minutes of it. It opens just like you would expect a game from the ex-creator of Limbo and Inside, and I've heard I don't know what I expected because Limbo and Inside were so critically acclaimed. This game, from what I saw, is getting generally 7.5. So in that
PC
kind of
Gamer destroyed it. I don't know what was in the guy's coffee that day.
I don't know. Yeah, I didn't look, but I've only about 30 minutes. And so as I play that more, we'll talk about it more in the future, but it sounds like none of us really have gone through it. It's only about 4 hours long from what someone said.
It's on my backlog this week. Okay. I'm going to be so efficient with my time if I don't get another review, which I probably will. So
Ragnarok, like its mythological namesake, has just taken over the entire world. So
okay. All right. Let's get these super chats. A few of them have been sitting for a while here.
Yeah, Don Lar with the $2 super chat. Whoa. 2 dates. Cool down the girlfriend thing.
Oh,
Travis.
She is an avid viewer of Bitcast. I don't know if she's going to appreciate that super chat.
Yeah. So I replied to this comment saying 2 dates with a 2-hour drive each way is at least a 10 date status with conversion for time. So I think that 10 dates is she's your girlfriend, bro. That's my personal feeling on it.
Yeah, if you're driving 2 hours, man. I mean, I
Each
don't
way.
even know what to say. Yeah, each way.
Yeah. That's like,
I mean, Jacksonville
that's 10
seems
dates.
like a big place, right? Or Orlando, wherever he lives.
Isn't that just a commute in California, Travis? I
know.
thought that's where you were.
I mean, I live in San Francisco, so I'm already here.
Sorry, my understandings of California are all Los Angeles County based.
Yeah, no, Los Angeles is a different country as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Nice. Don, thank you very much. Vault Boy in the house.
Boy, with $5 Canadian DMZ mode in COD Modern Warfare 2.
I love this.
Has changed the way I look at COD gaming, the world.
The gaming, the world. Nice.
Well, I don't know. I have no idea what gaming, the world. It's the world.
Change the way he looks at COD, gaming, the world. It's crazy good. Okay. Yeah, it is. I was talking to him on Twitter yesterday, and he's loving it too. And really, I already said my superlatives, so it's excellent.
I just love that, right? It's like DMZ mode. I've thought about world religions differently. I have a new political outlook.
The demilitarized zone version of Call of Duty. Yes. Yeah, it's awesome.
I want that to be the debate answer. What got you into public office? I played this mode of Call of Duty Modern Warfare. My God, changed everything.
Does it every time?
I love it, Vault Boy.
Yep. Thank you, brother. Gecko Gamer in the house.
And Hogue, which is more myopic, Sony Interactive Entertainment or Disney Parks?
Oh, Sony. I mean, Disney's raised their prices twice in 3 months, but they at least have a demand thing on their side. Sony's stock is in the tank, and they don't have any idea what they're doing.
Myopic about what? Profit?
Prices, and I guess content selection. See, if Disney Parks isn't myopic, they're only going to serve sultans and sheiks and things like that at the end of the day. But Sony Interactive Entertainment, I don't know what their hypothesis is here. So we'll see how they do. Disney's just moving into being elite entertainment, and they're going to just live there.
I'm glad I don't care that much about it.
Neither one of them.
Cool. All right. Super chats out of the way. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you. So let's talk. We said we would circle back on this because we talked about God of War Ragnarok last week. Obviously, we already got the conversation out of the way. It's up for Game of the Year. Very highly rated game. Last week, me and Travis were still early, a few hours in. Hogue was about 10 hours in.
30.
I am now where you were last week, I believe, Hogue. I'm right around the 10-hour mark. Obviously, no spoilers here. Don't worry about that.
Yeah,
I'm about the 10-hour mark. Travis, did you advance at all this week?
Not really.
Not really. Okay, that's fair.
Not really. I mean, a little bit, but no.
Hogue played it a bunch, and Dan has finished it. So,
30
Dan,
hours.
I want
30 hours for Hogue.
30 hours and still going. Okay. Dan, I want to start with you because we were doing Bitcast in 2018 when God of War 2018 came out, and it obviously was very similar Metacritic, similar reception, people blown away, etc. And I know I've said before I was about a 9 on that game. I know you were high on it because I remember our conversation around the time. And then obviously a lot of hype going into this one, and our DMs have been funny. So I want to start with you because you weren't here last week. So you've now finished the whole game. Talk to us.
I mean, it's. I think I said it in a tweet that basically I think a lot of the praise and just the masterpiece talk is due to the fact that there really hasn't been a whole lot of AAA games, with these big narrative, robust gameplay games this year, aside from basically Elden Ring and Horizon Forbidden West. There's been a couple other things, but so maybe the bar is super low. But I mean, I just think that it's good. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed my time with it. I think it's a great game. I think it's exactly what I expected, which wasn't much. I wanted them to basically finish the story of Kratos and Atreus, and give me some improved things here and there. So in that respect, they kind of nailed it. However, it is very, very long-winded. It is. It takes forever to get
so long.
So long. From point A. It's like the natural progression in your head is like, okay, this is going to happen next, and then 15 things happen in between those two things, and you're just like, wait a minute, why was this necessary, or why wasn't it better implemented in the story, right? It could have like there was without
No spoilers, remember?
Yeah. This is the game here.
Obviously, no, I'm not going to spoil it. There was just one part where you kind of think it's like, okay, I see kind of that light at the end of the tunnel, and this is and then all of a sudden that light kind of starts fading away, and then it's just like, wait a minute, what happened to the light? And it happens 3 or 4 times in this game, and it's not necessarily just for the ending; it's just for like different parts of that story, and the progression of it, and those parts are great, but it still feels kind of unnecessary. There's a lot of side content that is very, very unnecessary unless you want to upgrade stuff. And I know people have their issues. I've said this too with Ghost of Tsushima, but like that side content was meaningful to a lot of the story, to character development, to your relationship with your other companions, right? So like when I see a game, that's kind of what I want. If there's going to be that amount of side stuff, I don't want some slag or whatever that they have in
slag deposits.
They hack silver and some garbage in a little chest.
Stupid, it's crafting.
Oh,
so I said last week, you remember, I said that the whole upgrade system is one area where I really hope they upgraded it, pun intended, from God of War 2018, because it feels like it's what's the word I'm looking for? Like
tacked on.
Tacked on, like not meaningful, right? It's just there to say it has it.
We needed to put things in chests.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and a lot of like the even your main with the axe and your blades, those upgrades to level 9 or whatever are locked behind
plot progression,
other side content, right? And you got to do like, okay, there's 6 of this thing that you need to make this one thing to then upgrade your axe or whatever. I'm just like, well, this is super pointless. The combat, I will say this, amazing. I think it was much more fun than the first one. I think they did a wonderful job and implemented, new enemies, how to tackle each, that's great. It's really good. It feels very, tight, and I really enjoyed that. So that's probably my favorite part of the game. I think the story is fine, and it ended in a way that it had to. I'll just say that, it's like, okay, that makes sense, right? Like, you get to the end and you're just like, all right, I can accept that. Good job. Thank you, Sony Santa Monica. That's, now I'm done.
Yeah, and I have a theory. See, I have not beaten the game. I've poured my damn heart into it. I was trying to beat it before this episode because Dan, I could not agree with you more on this. You can see the contours of what it's going to be, and then you're just like, what are we doing? Why are we going in this direction or that, to just mix up people or places or whatever, and then just kind of keep sorting through them? It is so meandering. It is so lost and aimless, and it's like like when you were a kid and you get like the golden books, and then like your mom or your dad might get you the treasury of the golden books, and it's just a bunch of unrelated stories that kind of maybe have some similar artwork in them. It's like that. And I have a theory on that. I don't even know that I can discuss it without spoilers, because at least it's a spoiler for the end of 2018 as to what exactly this game is and how it got designed. But first of all, I wouldn't have called it Ragnarok, because other than Ragnarok is coming, Ragnarok ain't coming. You're going to spend some time. I think this was a trilogy. Yeah. I think this was a trilogy. I think this one was called Fimbulwinter, and they didn't have enough or didn't want to spend enough on whatever Ragnarok would have been.
Didn't want to call a game Fimbulwinter.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, Fimbulwinter is awesome to say, and we yell it every time a character says it in this game. So imagine now how much we're yelling Fimbulwinter.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a lot. I wouldn't put it on a box for a game.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't have called this Ragnarok, so we're even Steven. So this game has a bunch of cool ideas, and it will take one of its cool ideas and it will put you there for 3 to 5 hours until you hate it, your life, and the choices that you made to lead you into this position. Then it will do it again, and then it will do it again. And nowhere in any of that will it be apparent that there is an overarching plot, goal, direction. And the worst sin it commits early on, the first two realms and the prologue, are that it is utterly directionless. Like there isn't even a reason why you're doing the thing other than we're playing God of War. If you go and you look, there's not a drive toward why are we looking for this object? Why are we rescuing this person? Why are we going to this place? And it only kind of starts to come into focus, I don't even know, 15 hours in, 20 hours in. And then it just bounces around more. It almost feels like those, I know I said this to you in DMs, but for those of you that watched Lost, it feels like Jack's Tattoos episode, which is kind of a famous example of we've got an episode requirement to fill for ABC, right? We are going to hit 40 hours with this thing or something along those lines. And so we're going to do all these various things, and they're going to be out of that golden book treasury, but they aren't going to advance any particular ball other than the fact that Kratos has been reset at the start of the game. Atreus has been reset at the start of the game. We're going to clash. And we're going to clash until I presume we're not going to clash anymore, and we're going to have friendship is magic right into the end, whatever it is.
Right, that's the biggest thing, right? I mean, it's like it just started the whole game over again as far as character development.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't understand why it was just like, okay, we saw strides of character development for these guys in God of War 2018, and then maybe putting it maybe a little bit too strongly, but I mean, we saw, you know, Kratos go from this to this, right? And Atreus as well, you know, and then you start this one, and like within like 20 minutes, you're like, well, that's all gone. I mean, I don't even know what happened to everything. You know, what happened to these relationships? You know, did it just completely fall apart?
Atreus is taller.
Yeah, that's about it. And he's got a deeper voice,
and his voice actually changed, which is reality.
But it just didn't feel like it was very satisfying as far as like, you know. Some of the reasons they gave, it's hard to talk about this without getting into spoilers. But
sure.
It's I enjoyed the game. I'll just say that. I will also say that even when you think it's over, it's not over, and that happens probably 10 times. It's the way it holds your hand, and I'm a big fan of holding my hand through games. I hate games that don't tell you anything and just let you kind of. But I don't need, you know, people telling me what kind of, you know, hey, look at that rock up there. Maybe you should shoot it with this specific spell.
I see a gear. You should use your frozen axe on.
Don't do
really.
That. Yeah, I mean, it's there was times where I'm like, oh, I think I got it, and then dude opens his mouth and it's just like, what, dude, I almost had it.
You know, I feel like you're on a timer. You have 30 seconds.
Yes.
You walk in and you're like, all right, I got to solve this, or Atreus or whomever is going to say something. And I was just going through a sequence where it's like, okay, I see what you want me, and then it's, have you tried blah 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 blah. It's like
it's tough.
No, I hadn't, because you didn't let me.
Well, and the model is so rote. Like if you break it down, see, one of the things that I think is really great about Ragnarok, and I think everybody agrees, is the polish and the way it looks and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah, stunning.
But it's it is absolutely hallway battle arena, hallway puzzle, hallway battle arena.
Thank you.
And then in many of these realms, it'll have a portion where it'll just say like, here's the plot, and then there'll be a guy that says, here's an explorable area, or here are the side quests. And it is so mechanical and so rote. And I can tell you this, you know, I'm sure whatever the reviewers looked at that they liked on the side quest, that what I charitably call, oh no, they're blue flagging me again, because it's little blue flags that come up if a dialogue option will lead you to a side quest. I've been buzzing through for at least two realms, two plot moments now. Just be like, I gotta finish this, and then I'll come back. I will look at all this crap later, because so much of it, I know that they put a lot of pictures around it and a lot of nice art or whatever. So much of it is, this ghost needs your help and you need to do 3 things. This ghost needs your help and you need to do 3 things. There are 3 beaches for you to land on. There are 6 things to do. And it's like, I am not here with you. You are not compelling enough for this.
No, I think as you guys were talking about the narrative, and what concerns me now listening to you guys is the part I'm in right now. I'm quite literally exhausted with. And many people, you two included, and other people I've spoken to have said the part I'm in right now is the worst part of the game.
Second New Realm?
I don't know how to say it. New character and kind of wandering around.
Yep. Okay. I know where you are exactly from that.
Not just wandering around. You're wandering around at the slowest possible pace.
Yes, that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at.
And you're forced to.
See, this is what I'm talking about when I give that example, right? I think that new character is great. I think some of the things that new character does are great. I think the actual things you're learning in terms of lore and world building can be great. It goes on 400 times longer than it needs to.
Yes.
Yeah. So what worries me is the way you guys are talking about the rest of the game, where it improves a bit, but it still kind of just drags on and narrative and stuff. My biggest issue with the game is exactly what you just described, Hogue, which is game design, which is what you're actually doing through the game. And it is literally, as you said, it is go fight a couple enemies, open a chest, have some exposition, repeat. That's the entire freaking game. There is nothing interesting about that to me.
Well, what's hilarious is they have a sequence where you've got a device of some kind that you're supposed to use to lead you in a direction to find something else, and it's still the linear level. It's like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, and you can see it in the level design, and I think it's really weird because I was joking on cast with Luke, I think, and he's like, "Why am I playing Uncharted?" Because you're bouncing and climbing all this stuff, and I'm like, I feel like I'm playing a combination of Uncharted and Last of Us. And as we joked last week, Last of Us strength is not the gameplay, right? It's the relationship building and the narrative. And when you combine that with this kind of level design and puzzles and meandering, I think is a good word for a lot of this game. And again, from what I've heard, I haven't gotten to the best parts yet. I'm not judging the full game here, but just what I've played. It's just not doing it for me. And I look at these reviews that are blown away, and I think, wow, the latter half of this game or the last third of this game better be absolutely mind-blowing to justify what I've played through so far. And from what I'm hearing from you guys and a few others is it's better, and there's some really cool parts, but it's not mind-blowing.
It's stronger. From where you are to where I am, it's stronger than where you were. But my theory, and Dan maybe can help us out. My theory on this has been now for 20 hours of gameplay or so, is like the ending must be awesome. The ending must be amazing because there is this notion in both critic classes and just if you like look at the analysis of media in general, that you've got the start and you've got the end, and they're always going to get a heightened kind of just remembrance over the kind of churn in the middle.
Right.
And if you end just fantastically, like regardless of the rest of a movie, for instance, you're going to get a higher score than you might otherwise if you're leaving the theater stoked about what you saw. So my theory is it ends strongly, and that leads you into your review process with man, that was something. One of those that works that way for me a little bit, and I know people, Travis especially likes to mock me for this one, but I really love Death Stranding, and part of my love for Death Stranding is that I think it ends tremendously strongly. And I think a lot of people that play Death Stranding are never going to see any of that.
That's what I worry about with Ragnarok too, frankly, because to your point, you can get past a lot of stuff if you have a great ending. But if your game is 30, 40 hours long, getting to that ending is not a lot of people, not everyone's going to get there. And that's kind of a bad, I don't know. I'm a big fan of games being as long as they need to be and not trying to artificially inflate how long they are. But
it feels like a lot of filler.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of what you guys are saying, honestly, obviously, I'm only like 5 hours in, but a lot of what you guys are saying is like exactly what I said about the first one. To be honest,
no, you're right, and honestly, Travis, as I've played through this game, and Rob Frawley just said in the chat, this is the level design's the same as 2018, and now in my mind, I'm thinking, was I too forgiving of 2018's flaws? Because I think at the time, we talked about this before, when they rebooted God of War and it was Kratos in a new light and this new story, and it was a showcase for the PlayStation 4, I go back and think, were we too forgiving on its flaws because of what it achieved in 2018? Because as I'm playing this now, as we said, it's gorgeous. It's a stunning technical achievement. But the other aspects of it are really not doing it for me.
But at that time, there was nothing that really compared to what God of War 2018 was. I think they moved the needle enough to where I think you're probably pretty spot on.
You could overlook some of those
Right,
flaws, right?
right, because yeah, you've got this different kind of gameplay. You've got this totally, seamless experience where there's not loading screens and all this other stuff. There's different things that I think that game did where it kind of moved at least that genre forward a little bit. Very, regardless of whether you like the story or not, I think it did a good job telling it. But with this one, it seems like I said, it's kind of a rehash. The engine's kind of the same. Now there are areas, and you guys, I don't know if you've gotten to them yet, that are open, like where they're like more. They're not. I'm running down this corridor. Now they're open in the sense that okay, this is big. It's not like the.
It's the lake. They do the lake of the 9,
but they do it differently. I don't know how to really say this. There's stuff that's kind of placed all over these, but there's a big open area. For instance, in I want to say it's Anaheim, and there's another one. Gosh, I can't remember. I can't remember all the Heims. There's too many.
Well, I mean, I would tell you the first place I get annoyed. So you look at Svartalheim, and it does a mini Lake of the Nine.
That one's very tunnely. You know what I mean?
It does a mini Lake of the Nine, and you're like, blah.
That's the early one that I did already,
yes,
right?
You did Svartalheim.
Yeah. I was the same way. It was like, I'm going to roll to this little.
It's way bigger than what you've experienced though so far. So there's way more to it. That's very
maybe good.
Yeah. No. There's other parts of it that are, and that's where some of the best fights are too of the game. It's like finding these mini boss battles and stuff like that. But it's very, very much, I'm gonna put you on these rails and send you out, and then they kind of get you to this point where it's like, okay, now do whatever you want to do. And
that's their mode.
There's like 3 places in the game.
Yep.
Which sucks because there could have been a lot more. I mean, they got to a point where I was just like, I gotta do something, and just because it's driving me crazy how it was just boring at the time. So I went and found Troy Baker does a voice of like a squirrel. So I just sat there for like, I'm not even joking, like 10 minutes and just stop talking. Throwing my stuff at him, and it was fantastic. And then I was like, I'm refreshed. I'm ready to go.
You're talking about Ratatasker?
No, it's not him. That's not. He doesn't do his voice.
Oh, okay.
It's actually, I think it's one of his friends. He does the voice for. That's how low he was on the totem pole in this one. So
nice.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hogue. Let me ask this. I don't know if it's going to tie into what you're about to say, but as I reflect on this game and I continue to push through it, I was thinking about Sony first party in general, right? And I called them on cast co-op spectacle games. And what I mean by that is they're big budget, beautiful graphics, a lot of flash and
there is a lot of flash in Ragnarok.
You call those
flash. There's a lot of flash.
Yeah, and what I liken them to, well, 2 things I want to throw at you guys and get your opinion on. Whether this is a good analogy, a terrible analogy, or middling, you can tell me. I likened into the Marvel movies in that I'm not a huge Marvel MCU guy. I've said that before, right? But when I look at a movie like The Avengers, for example, right? To me, personally, it's a movie, big budget, lots of flash, lots of special effects, big superheroes, lots of explosions and bangs and stuff. In terms of depth, it doesn't do anything for me. And I feel that way about it. Let me get through the point. You can counter me. And like I said, you can tell me if this is a terrible analogy. This is what I was using. And what I'm starting to feel with these games, when I look at Last of Us 2, when I look at Uncharted 4, when I look at now Ragnarok, I would say I'm forgetting one. I don't remember. But anyway, I feel like, one, these are spectacle games, and they're not doing a lot for me beyond just the flash and the show and the graphics and things. And 2, the other point, which is separate of this, is I feel when I look at the games I just mentioned, Uncharted 4, Last of Us 2, Ragnarok, it feels like we keep having the same conversation around there needs to be an editor. Like, why are these games so long when they don't need to be? The Last of Us 1, which
all those
I
games
think
had that problem.
Yeah, and Last of Us 1, which I think, well, I know I consider a masterpiece, but that is you can finish that game in what'd you say, 12 hours maybe, if you go through it, something like that? 12, 14 hours.
Yeah, probably.
Am I on mark on that? I've beat it 3 times. I have to think it's somewhere.
I honestly don't have a great feel for how long it takes. I think
you can beat it in a day for sure. You can't beat God of War Ragnarok in a day.
No, and that's kind of my point.
God, if I tried, Travis. God, if I tried.
If you look
God
at
of
Last of
War.
Us 2 compared to Last of Us 1, and there's reasons it was longer. I get that. I understand. But the same conversation we had with that is like, God, it just loses itself, right? And you're playing for hours. Uncharted 4, the same thing. You had this brilliant game in Uncharted 2, which is just beloved. And then Uncharted 4 just loses itself. And you're spent hours just doing things which don't seem to be meaningful. And now I feel like we're having the same conversation with Ragnarok again. And it's just like, why do they feel these games have to be 30 or 35 hours long when you have games in your portfolio that are hugely critically acclaimed that don't need to be half that?
Well, I think back. I was thinking back about this while I was playing one of the sequences that was 5 or 6 hours long, and I was like, the original God of War is probably 6 hours as a game. I mean, the bloat we have at this point. Not 2018, like God of War, whatever. God of War Law School is how I think of it. Whatever year that was. There's so much bloat, and I think we've just gotten away from it. Like God of War was short but awesome, and you could play it multiple times, and whatever of that era. Metal Gear Solid is 6 hours long. All of these things that are kind of contemporaries, and they can have fun. And this is look. If you were telling a story that was compelling and that there were beats that made sense, and we weren't just kind of looping over the same things or just changing up certain aspects of it so we could tell another story, I could work with it. And I'm still going to play this through to the end. It's not getting a 4 from me. It's going to get an 8 almost certainly, depending on what happens as we kind of land the plane. But it is, to me, to my eye, and this is, I get crap online. This is an IGN issue. This is not an IGN issue. The parade of 10s for God of War Ragnarok is suggestive to me of an issue with the critical eye that we're putting on video games and what we demand of them.
Agree. Big agree.
And I know, Travis, it's just one person's opinion. I get that. I still think you can be a good critic or a bad critic depending on how critical you actually are in looking at these things.
I agree. And I do think that the God of War Ragnarok thing is a problem. I think it's something you're very good at, a lot of people,
Travis, to pay you a compliment.
What's that?
I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, I think that's something you're very good at in your reviews is putting a critical eye on them and giving them I would call up a proper score.
I DM'd the most shameful thing I've ever DM'd, which was, I think the world needs more Travises.
Don't put that out into the universe, Hogue.
I will say, I think if you're playing a game and you don't have at least 10 things to complain about, you're probably not good at the critic part of being a critic. A lot of people who write reviews are sharing their experiences, and that's one way to do it. But when I look at games from a critical eye, I'm trying to figure out, okay, what do I, even if I love this game, like, if there aren't 10 things that I can name that I am annoyed by, I wasn't really paying attention, and I'm not expecting enough from my game. So I try to do that, even if I theoretically were to give a game a 10, which I've never done. I think that at that point I would probably still have things I complain about. They just wouldn't matter that much. And so I think with Ragnarok, there's people's genuine love for the franchise and the series and their memories of 2018, which you can never get away from nostalgia and people's personal preferences. It's just part of it. It's part of just being a person. There's the expectation. I think the lack of imagination or what a sequel could be is a big problem, where people just go, well, I absolutely love the first one. This is the first one, but with a new story, and I like the story, so it's a 10. I think that's a huge missed opportunity. And then I think just some people don't have the same kind of irritation with certain things. I do want to go back to Ains's analogy for Marvel movies, because I think there's something there, which is that a movie or a game doesn't have to be Citizen Kane to be a 10 out of 10 masterpiece. The difference with the Marvel movies is you enjoy the ride, and the ride respects your time, right? It's a 2-hour movie, and it's got, good jokes, and you're laughing, and you're like, okay, it was cool. Fast and Furious movies, which I famously really love. Are they
terrible movies? mean,
they're fantastic movies, but they're fantastic movies because partly because they know what they are, right? They don't try to write themselves as high art. They're just, look, it's a movie about cars and guys that can do things that are over the top and big hard boobs on both men and women. So this is an important distinction between games and movies, which is that between Marvel and what's happening here, which is the lack of respecting of your time, right?
Fair.
The fact that if the payoff is I experienced something sad and it took me 30 hours to get there and I didn't enjoy the journey. Games are very much, all media really is about really enjoying the journey. How much did you enjoy in the moment to moment action? And I feel like some gamers are like flagellating themselves as they play, and they're just going, oh, well, I have to go through this 5-hour, really slow thing just to really like prime me for this action adventure, like this fight that's going to happen at the end of the segment. And to me, I'm just like, no, it should all be fun. The 5-hour journey to get to the boss fight should be just as entertaining, or at least marginally less entertaining, I guess, than the conclusion to that act, and you move on. And so there's a little bit of like, oh, it's The Last of Us 2. It's not about having fun. It's about, putting myself through the paces and living in the world. And I'm just like, why are you playing games? Like, actually,
Can I say something in defense of Ragnarok,
Yeah.
Travis? Just so we're clear on this, because I think the Uncharted and Last of Us 2 are good references in terms of editing and pacing. Ragnarok is not nearly as dour as our favorite dour joints from Sony Interactive Entertainment. Okay?
So I have not played a ton of I have not played a ton of God of War Ragnarok, and honestly, my impressions off the first 5 hours were that I have all the same complaints I had from the first game, 2018.
Yep.
But I think the combat is significantly better, and that was one of my big complaints with the first one, is that not only did I not really touch the story and I thought the pacing was slow, but also the combat, I was like, I mean, it's good, but like you fight the same enemies over and over, and the upgrade system isn't very advanced, and I had issues with it. And so the significant improvement for me, I'm happy with Ragnarok so far. What you guys are describing is giving me flashbacks to all the things I've hated. And while I'm talking about God of War, can I talk about one more thing that I think people give way too many compliments on?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, the fact that it has no loading screens. People love to hype that up. God of War has loading screens. They're called logs. They're called cracks in rocks. Okay, they exist. They're there, and I don't think it's impressive.
They're the gates. It's always hilarious, right? The gates only
boat
have
rides
after a
are loading
conversation.
screens.
Yeah. But that's okay. When people say no loading screens, they mean that the load screens are organically integrated into the game, right? Like that. It's just shorthand.
Yeah.
But you crawl through a crack so many times in this game, it's unbelievable.
Bro,
like it's worse than Plague Tale.
So many logs. It's like that is a loading screen. And honestly, I think I would rather see a tip. Honestly, show me a spinning wheel and a tip. Did you know? Then watch this animation again, where I let my boy through.
It's just Travis wants to see the tip.
Well, here's what I don't understand. Why don't you just move the rock away from everything, right? And then you never have to move it again.
Well, there's all sorts of those, right? But I want to say this, right? Because I think that's actually a part of the reason that there's a large criticism on the pacing of this game, right? Because I think they committed to this always over the shoulder, never losing context for this personal moment, and then trying to tell a story within it. And I had problems in 2018 with that because I think it leads to certain issues with the storytelling. This one is much, much, much worse, because I think what they were doing it's kind of typical sequelitis, Travis. They wanted to do bigger, bolder, more badass, right? And so it is much more sprawling. It is much more hundreds of characters. It is much more, hundreds of locations. And in order to make the one camera conceit work for that, instead of having a cutscene where you check in with the baddies for 5 minutes and get everything you need to know or anything like that, you have to do it personally, and you have to go through something. You're not just going to become a walking simulator. So they add, literally, Ains knows this better than most at where he is in the game. They add something for you to do so that they can essentially deliver a cutscene of exposition. So you do something, and they do it for everything that they have to add. And since they do want to work with dozens of characters now, they want to work with just tons of stuff that is much bigger than 2018. They have to come up with stupider and stupider ways of putting people in different rooms and putting people in different conversations that they can overhear, right? And so it's all of this kind of, if you're really watching the Puppet Master, you're like, oh my God. So we went through this 2-hour sequence with 3 extra puzzle rooms because, hey, we got developers, because you need me to hear that. And there's no other way to actually get me that information unless I'm there. Now you do skip that a couple times because they'll just have characters appear and they'll effectively like taunt you or say something important and then it disappeared. It's like, okay, we're really stretching the conceit of what single camera can do here. And it's hurting the story. It is hurting what you're actually putting out there to try to hold to this. And I hate that. I hate going for something that is, whatever, technically impressive or tonally what you want to do and getting ahead of yourself for what you're actually delivering as a story, because I think it hurts the whole experience.
Like, I don't think you have to do that stuff either.
No.
I mean, if you look at like Ghost of Tsushima, if you fast travel, I go back to it, it's instant, right? I mean, there's no loading screen. You just kind of goes black and then comes back.
Demon Souls is the same way. It's like
with the power of the PS5.
Right. Yeah. The new consoles should be able to pull that off. Like the fast traveling in God of War is dumb. I mean, I understand why they did it, but I should be able to go through a gate and then end up at the next gate, as opposed to having this world between worlds that I don't really need, unless it's there for a conversation. And most of those conversations, unfortunately, don't really progress the story. It's just kind of like a side banter. And some of it is fantastic, I will say. Like, there was, just the talks that you had between your companions. I still love that part.
Some of the banter is excellent. I love that.
It's so good. Like the riddles that that Mimir tells and all this other stuff, they're hilarious. And
very Ellie.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're
can I say one last thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sony, you can't use Elena Fisher in remotely major roles in your games because it pops way too much out of your game. Sorry.
Yeah,
I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
Elena is Nathan Drake's wife.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think
gotcha.
Hogue has a very particular taste when it comes to celebrity voices.
She's not a celebrity. Is she a celebrity?
I mean, yeah, but you recognize voice actors all the time. You're always talking about like, oh, I don't want to see Nolan North or
Travis, when you get there, you let me know if it jumps out at you.
I probably won't remember the voice actors for Uncharted 4. It's been a while. Yeah,
it was.
You'd be surprised how quickly I forget about any. Like literally, half the games when they go, "Oh, that's clearly what's his name? The guy who's in everything."
Troy Baker, Nolan North.
Troy Baker. Literally, when they say it's Troy Baker, I go, "Oh yeah," I didn't register at all. Like very few times.
I can't tell you. I'm gonna end by saying I can't tell you how excited I am for Travis to play the next 5 hours of the game, because if you're anything like me and what we've talked about.
That's the highest pain point I've had playing God of War.
Your complaints, man. Travis, like right now, this is not a joke. Like this was one of my most anticipated games of the year. We've talked about it, right? I do not have an urge to even keep playing it. I think
Horizon is a vastly better Sony game than Ragnarok.
Me too. Just based on the 5 hours I played, I honestly thought Forbidden West was way better.
I was honestly debating just going back and reinvesting in Forbidden West rather than
because they took out the talking. They took out a lot of it.
Exactly.
So it's playable now.
I think Forbidden West is a much stronger game than Ragnarok. And I don't believe, I'd have to check, I don't believe it got the same kind of parade of
it
10.
did not. It got an 88. It's an 88.
Yeah. They got close.
But it's not as
to me,
celebrated.
Forbidden West is a 9 and God of War is almost certainly going to be an 8 for me. Like I opened up that game and I was like, oh yeah, this is an 8. And what's funny is like, I obviously I don't actually give game scores unless I finish them, but like just in my brain, I was like, Jesus, this just feels so much like an 8. It's funny is being on this podcast and the other podcast I was on, exact opposite experience. They were all just like foaming at the mouth for this game and talking about how great it was. One of the guys was like, I cried in the first 20 minutes. And I was like, at what? Like, what? Like at the quick time events? It almost
sometimes if you kill a dog, people cry.
Yeah, dude. I totally forgot that even happened. I was like, oh yeah, the dumb dog. I'm heartless.
He'll come back in 20 hours, Travis.
I just probably I don't know. I'm looking actually forward because I do have people in our Discord and other people I know who love God of War and love Kratos and adore 2018 and adore this game. And I'm looking forward to eventually finishing it whenever I decide to and having that conversation to understand their perspective of why they think this is a 10 or a brilliant game.
One interesting thing about you saying Kratos fans is I do think if you wanted to just level at it from a different direction than mine, I think Kratos is pretty close to an afterthought in the game named after him. So I mean, that's a different conversation piece for perhaps a little bit further from the game's release. But
yeah, I know on Cast I was talking and the question I think it might have been Joe asked or Luke asked said is like, I thought this was God of War. Like at times it doesn't feel like you're playing God of War.
Everybody's very sad about being God of War.
Oh God, that's what I thought about Uncharted. I was like, this doesn't feel like Uncharted. No, stop doing this. Okay, so
I'm pumped. I'm pumped for you to continue, Travis. I can't wait.
Oh God, yeah, it's probably.
I don't think contrarian. He's going to find other positives now that we haven't said.
I really am not. You know what it is I just don't like a lot of things, and when people love the things I don't like, they go, "Wow, you're contrarian," and then when I also don't like the things that they don't like, they go, Travis, he's always telling it like it is. And I'm like, I'm just a curmudgeon. I just don't like stuff. Okay. It's like
honestly, I wish more people could play with you as you're doing one of these reviews, because one of my favorite things this fall was playing Gotham Knights with Travis and watching his mind work through all of the things he was experiencing. Was wonderful. I highly recommend it. Travis, you can sell tickets.
The review process is interesting for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I don't want to stay on God of War. We've talked about it forever, but one thing I'll just point out is
it's almost 10 and we haven't even gotten to the main topic of the show.
I know. The one thing that's funny is that when some people don't realize that this game was not directed by Cory Barlog, right? This was directed by Eric Williams, a different director at Sony Santa Monica. And I think now reflecting, people just assume that this would be just like 2018, but I don't know. Maybe there's more to that than we realize, that changing game directors here did have an impact.
Well, Mr. Barlog is listed as creative director.
Yeah,
so I assume he's still responsible for the overall thrust of the story and plot. Not writing line by line, but the overall thrust of what is to happen and things like that, and the world that they're engaged in. I do wonder, as I think this is a first time game directing for Mr. Williams. I don't know that for sure. I do wonder if there weren't a little bit more constraints about exactly how far you could go with things. There is a very kind of vanilla approach to what we're going to do in this game, and that maybe they didn't feel like they could stretch their legs more. I don't know. But I mean, I got a 10 of 10s. Who am I to judge on this stuff other than to tell you that to me, it is the most obviously overrated game in a while. And I'd have to really think about that. It reminds me of kind of like a BioShock Infinite type thing, where you're going to look at it again after the fact and be like, it's a good game, but it isn't that. I mean, it's up there with like Ocarina of Time right now. I was like, no.
Gotcha. Well, anyway, we have been talking for a while on that. So there wasn't a lot of game news, but I did want to touch on the Game Awards, and this doesn't have to be overly long because we'll circle back after the Game Awards and do our breakdown show, right, of the awards and all that. But there are a couple topics I wanted to mention on this real quick and just get your guys' thoughts on. So the Game Award nominees are out, right? The show, just as a reminder, is December 8th at 7:30 Eastern. So it's only a few weeks away at this point. There are 31 categories, 31 nominees. The interesting thing, and I know go ahead.
Can I say one thing before you continue? Because you talked about the time. Obviously, guys, it doesn't actually start at 7:30 Eastern. It starts at 6 Eastern, and then they give out half of the awards before you log on to actually watch the show. And then you go, wait, what? I'm 10 minutes early. How did I miss half of the awards? So to be clear, it starts at 6 Eastern.
The most important thing to understand about the Game Awards is that it's not an awards show.
Right, it's very true. That's kind of what I want.
Is that what your argument is?
Yeah. It's trailers and commercials. The show. I mean, it's not an award show, not by any mechanism that you might recognize one.
Anyway, Ains, please continue. Sorry.
It's kind of what I wanted to ask is, so we talk every year. Everyone talks about the deadline cutoff and how are games selected and the jury. And so I actually went back through their site, which I have up over here, and I kind of went through it again. And just a reminder, right? So the nominees are selected. This is directly from their site. An international jury, I love the word jury, of 100 global media and influencer outlets. Mm-hmm. They don't define influencer outlets. Selected for their history of critical video game evaluation. And then
and their love of cats.
Apparently. And then it says, given the sheer number of games released each year, as well as the extended time required to fully evaluate products, a voting outlet, quotes, approach allows for the widest possible critical assessment. And the first question I want to pose to you guys is, as I look through these awards, because we talked about this on Cast Co-op with Joe and Luke too, is all of the major awards have almost all of the same nominees. It's like God of War, Elden Ring, what are the others up there? For Horizon Forbidden West. And like those 4 or 5 nominees are the nominees for like several categories of the major categories. And so as you look across and you look through all the nominees and you look at all the games, and you made a good point in our DMs, Hogue, around the vast array of experiences that are released every year in the gaming industry, right? And how many of those are celebrated. And I actually went through earlier this week on Metacritic, just to be contrarian, I guess, and say, let's use Stray as the example, right?
Let the hate flow through you, Ains. Yeah.
So Stray is an 84 meta rated game. It had incredibly small impact on the gaming industry. And yet it is up for what would be considered the most prestigious award, of this show, which is Game of the Year. If you look through just meta, forget everything else, just meta, there's like countless games that have released this year that are not only higher rated than Stray, but that I would argue have a much bigger impact on the gaming industry. So when you start to break that down, it's like, how does this supposed 100 global media and influencer outlets selected from their history of critical video game evaluation, what a sentence, how does that create such a hallway, narrowly focused list of nominees and winners every year?
I know how.
Go.
Yeah.
It's a genuine question.
The problem with the Game Awards Game of the Year selections and a lot of these nominations is that the winners are always the games that the most people on the jury played. And so the games that have, because the problem is, if you wanted to do a true game award, people would have to play every single game or have an opinion on every single game. That way they could look at all of them and then all say, here's all of the options, and I vote for these few. But what ends up happening is you pick 100 people. What are the games that those people all had in common, right? And then the ones that they have in common are always the big games that you have to play to be a part of the conversation or to stay in the industry. And so when you get the results, it's almost always, even though they're evaluating it critically and trying to figure out the ones they like the best, it's more often than not a game of mode. You're trying, like, they're finding the mode of the number, right? They're the ones that have the greatest overlap in the Venn diagram are the ones that get nominated, unfortunately, for what's played. So it's a weird like math problem that really irritates me, which is why I always take pride. I pride myself in trying to complete every single game that gets nominated. That way I can vote on the nominations. But the actual nomination process is impossible because it's not physically possible to have a panel of people play all 2,000 games that came out that year, or even the top 100 games. Like, if I were designing a system, I would take the average, let's not say Metacritic specifically, but I would take like the aggregate scores, and I would require all the panelists to at least play 10 hours of the top, 30 games. And then that's your requirement to entry. You have to prove to do that. But I don't know if that's feasible. I don't know if there's any appetite for that. It's sort of, it's not as bad as the Oscars, but it has the same sort of popularity contest feel to it.
Yeah. I think the Emmys are the worst, maybe the Grammys. But
my point is that it's not like you're buying ads to, get your game or lobbying or whatever, but it does have the same kind of like, well, which games do the most people play? Those are the ones that are more likely to get nominated.
Well, I agree with you on that. And we still have to account for Stray, which is I can't account for Stray, right? I can't account for people that don't know the nominees. It's the 3 that Ains mentioned. It's Plague Tale, Requiem, and it's Stray. And it's Xenoblade Chronicles 3, because 6 is a good number for nominations. I don't know. And so Stray is the one that jumps out because it's okay. It's everybody plays these games. I don't know if everybody played Stray. I think the overall aggregate kind of zeitgeist application I want to put on these things is like, okay, yes, They all play the ones that everybody plays, but they want to be a little hipster. They want to be, we're not just into the big bands. We're going to pick out an indie to throw at it. And Stray wound up winning that particular pole position as well. But it's a weird thing for this year when you've got Rogue Legacy 2, when you've got Immortality, when you've got Sifu, when you've got, there's so many. Nobody saves
there's
the world.
There's a lot. Yeah,
you've got
there's a
so
lot.
many
Cult of the
big
Lamb.
Indie games. Cult of the Lamb, for Pete's sake.
Yeah,
you've got a lot of games that were talked about as much as Stray, and Stray is a short game with very few ideas. I won't be meaner to it than that, but it doesn't belong remotely close to that list, like not even remotely close. And so that's the thing that jumps out at me. Now, obviously, I've been plugging Immortality for a long time because I think that might be one of the best narratives ever put in games, but I get that it's a full motion video game and it's kind of a weird thing anyway as a game. So I at least understand how it might not grok for everybody. Yeah. Stray is just, let's celebrate mediocrity, the game. And I don't abide by that at all.
Thank you. Thank you. This is the biggest problem I think we have with these games these days is that we get these games that are mediocre that do like one thing that's like, oh, look at that. It's a new shiny. And then it's just like we elevate them to this, super high level. They don't really ever get like repeated, like other games don't really pull from them, but there's just like, oh, hey, look at this. This is amazing. Roguelike, like Hades. I know everybody loved Hades. I thought it was terrible.
Oh, no.
Don't die on that hill, Dan.
Bro, that's dramatic.
You're on a roll.
We keep elevating these games and we keep getting these, what I think of indies. I just can't deal with them. Like every once in a while, there's a game that comes out that I'm just like, oh, hey, this is great.
Don't keep saying
I just cannot. We get this just mediocre game that's just like, okay, this is whatever. I don't get it. But then developers go, hey, look, they all like this game. Let's just do the same thing, but kind of a little bit different. It just drives me crazy. We don't get these giant AAA games like God of War or Horizon or Elden Ring or stuff like that all the time. This year has been so damn dry. Like I played 5 games and 2 of them have been sports games, like new games. And then you get Stray. It's not even in my top 20 new games that I played this year, and I played 5. So, I mean, I don't understand
Stray,
why these. I finished Stray because it was free.
It takes 6
That's
minutes.
The only reason.
So,
I long, but I kept like the entire time. I'm just like, please, somebody punch me in my face. I can't deal with this very much, and it was just so bad.
So obviously everything Dan said was wrong.
Yes,
but that's
certainly the Hades sequence.
It's the Hades sequence. So I will say, like, I think the aspiration of we should nominate games that tried new things and succeed at them in the games industry that are stuff we've never seen before. I like the ambition part of Game of the Year, and I think that's what gets indies nominated is when they try something new and they nail it that we've never seen before, because it's one thing for Call of Duty to just be another good Call of Duty game, right? Even if it's an amazing Call of Duty game, it's still, we know exactly what it is. We've seen it a million times, blah, blah, blah. But when something like The Walking Dead comes out and people are like, oh, dang, like, it's been a while since we saw Telltale's Walking Dead. It's been a while since we saw an adventure game that has this sort of narrative be at this level. And I think that can change the industry, as The Walking Dead did back in the day. And I think
bankrupted Telltale
eventually, but the game was good.
Gave you the wrong lessons.
Yeah, but Hades is, I think, another great example of it perfected the roguelite formula, added the narrative stuff.
Hades is fantastic. We don't even need to justify.
It's so damn good.
Move away from Hades, but
I think sometimes there's a risk of the token indie game showing up on Game of the Year because we've gotten used to seeing it, and there's usually one. It's usually the underdog, and look,
I think that was Dan's point, despite the Hades land.
Yes. So I'm trying to explain why I also think it's odd that it's on the list. Full disclosure, I've not played a minute of Stray, so I do not know anything about this game.
Massively unimpressed by the ideas presented by Stray.
So that is my impression just based on seeing it, but I think the desire to nominate an indie. Look, I love indies, and I think they often lead the way when it comes to innovation. I think a lot of them deserve to be nominated for Game of the Year. I don't think that this was a year where indies did stuff that blew me away personally on a lot of them.
Immortality belongs there, and I will die on that hill.
I have not played
people get done
Immortality
shooting
either.
people.
I have not played Immortality either. I bought it. It's on my list. I just think that that I would have preferred that get nominated. I've heard great things
Immortality
from you.
is so goddamn
Vampire
good.
Survivors, people are screaming about
Vampire
right
Survivors. It got nominated for something.
Vampire
Again,
Survivors, I keep forgetting came out this year because I played it in January.
Yeah.
It came out the tail end of 2021 on
Again,
PC,
I think Stray got nominated because it had the highest overlap of people who played the game because it was free.
I think you're probably right.
There was a lot of hype around it.
Not
Not a lot of people played Immortality. Not a lot of people played Immortality. Not a lot of people played Vampire Survivor on that panel. Apparently, it did get nominated in other categories. But I just honestly think it's the numbers game, right? You pick 100
No,
people.
you're right.
How many of them played this game?
You're right. Yeah, it's messy.
I don't
let's
care
get
at all, except to mock.
No, I don't either. I don't really care who wins or anything.
It's not the real game awards.
I'm not
the real
invested
game
in
award.
it.
I really like it when the developers do the voting. I like those awards. I tend to like the British ones a little bit better. The game
the
award
outlets. I like when the outlets do it because they review every game, and a lot of them, like the IGN outlet, like we try to get everybody to play all the games before we vote. As many of them as we can. So.
It's funny the way you described it, Travis, because we had obviously a very sliver microcosm of the issue you presented, which is if you bring a group of people together, it's going to be what they played, not necessarily the best game.
Every outlet has this problem.
Yeah,
the only way Game of the Year really works is if it's a single person and that person's played a lot of games. That's really the only way to do it.
Hey, folks,
and even then,
Virtual Legality's Hoglaw Game of the Year 2022. We do it every year, and it's just me being crazy.
I was going to say, even then, you just have one person's opinion.
Exactly.
It's just my opinion, but hey,
in
2020, you like my opinion? Great. If you hate my opinion, that compass works equally well backwards.
Hogue, you know what you should do? You should make badges for your Game of the Year nominations and give them to the games that you pick.
Oh, I offered
Reach
to
out
make
to the developers, devs. Give them badges.
I was communicating on Twitter with the guy that makes Immortality. I was like, "Don't worry, you're my Game of the Year. I'll get you a sticker."
There you go. There you go.
So in 2020, we created the Season Gaming Awards and did a whole thing for it and everything, and we faced a very similar issue that you spoke about. Yeah, it's because I had played different games from Nate, and Nate had played different games from Dan, and Dan had played different games. And so we all had different opinions on what that was. And it's like, you can only do so much. So we actually switched it to just a breakdown of all of the editors' favorite games from that year because the actual Game Awards, it doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work.
Lots of people do that, but it's not as sexy, right? Like you can't give a badge. You can't give a badge for your site I also did Game of the Year nominations at small outlets, and those were the worst experiences I've ever had with Game of the Year because it was like you'd have the Dans who played like 5 games that year and like you just couldn't talk when it came to 98%, but then they would still have really strong opinions and vote, and then their word is as much as somebody who played like 100 games that year, and it's just like, dude, I got so frustrated with those conversations that I started like basically publicly dunking on our Game of the Year selections, like just being like, this is such a stupid process, and I was not popular. I still am not popular, but yeah.
Let's hit these super chats real quick, and then I got one other aspect.
Lazy Weekend sounds like a plan to me. Cheers to the one of the best podcasts out there. Thank you.
I don't know which one you're talking about, but cheers to them as well.
Yeah. Cheers to that podcast.
Let me know what it is so we can also tune in next time.
We'll just stream it.
We'll play it in the background as we're talking. By the way, Gecko said, "Hey, someone else I got the price bump because as you can see, that's a €5.99."
There you go.
So, yeah, it must be location based. But thank you, Lazy Weekend. Appreciate that. Bizzle
with the $10 super chat. Elden Ring wins Game of the Year hands down.
I wish I could tell you it was hands down.
It is hands down.
It's a pretty hands down.
I think it will. Yeah. I haven't even played
should
it.
be.
Not about people. I thought we were talking about this as part of the game.
Agree.
From the people that nominated Stray, I'm not guaranteeing Elden Ring.
No, I think Ragnarok has a very, very high chance of winning for recency bias and a million other reasons. I think it could win, and I would be pretty upset. I think Elden Ring is
Elden Ring is a generational game. Like, give me a break.
At the very least, it does something we've never seen before, and God of War Ragnarok does not. We haven't talked about Plague Tale. By the way, I want to say for you guys for this podcast, I wanted to say I reviewed 2 of the games that were nominated for Game of the Year. We haven't talked about either of them. All right, Plague Tale Requiem and Xenoblade Chronicles 3, both my reviews. So I do not only play bad games.
Yes.
You also didn't give those 2 games. You also didn't give those 2 games Game of the Year type scores.
I gave them both 8s. Stand by them.
Tao in the house.
Tao with $5 super chat. Stray shouldn't have been on the indie. Shouldn't have been the indie darling. Sifu, Tunic, Cult of the Lamb.
Tunic
Nobody saves the world.
Yeah,
Nobody saves the world is a big one too. Yeah.
Nobody.
I super agree with this chat. I think all of those are more worthy.
All of those are better than Stray. Yeah, 100%. Yep. And Immortality isn't even on that list, which is the best of them all.
I haven't even played half of these, and I can't even imagine. Does anybody know what Hoag's opinion
is on Immortality? Have we?
I've never heard of that game.
One of the best narratives in the history of the video game industry.
Probably ask him about it at some point. We don't have time for this show, but we'll talk about it.
No, we'll come back to it at some point. I'm sure.
And Gecko with the €6. Stray got the nomination as it looks the most like a AAA game. It's definitely pretty.
I don't think that's true.
It is. Yeah. It's a AAA type of game. I mean, that's how Plague Tale gets up there.
I don't think that's true. I think it really has to. I think accessibility and popularity is a way bigger thing than how it looks. Because
I don't think Plague Tale is the same way. Plague Tale is an indie game, right? So Plague Tale Requiem and Stray both have this kind of third-person, over-the-shoulder character adventure type thing, and that's what got nominated.
Plague Tale Requiem was on Game Pass, and a lot. I can just speaking from the sample size of IGN has a few people that were on that panel. A lot of them played it because it was just free. It was available.
And Stray is on PlayStation.
It was not. It was free.
The second level is.
Yeah, it was on PlayStation subscription for free.
PlayStation Plus second level. I can't remember them.
Yeah.
Plus
Tier 2
premium.
Tier 2
yeah. Extra. Is it extra?
Okay, it's essential. I know that's what I have, and then it's
I think it's essential, extra, premium.
And then Tier 3, I'm currently calling suckers tier because they don't add anything to it ever. But yes.
All right, and then Bo Johan, constantly confused.
Yeah, $2 for Hoax Swear Jar. LOL.
I'm allowed to swear over here.
You are,
man.
Yeah. Okay. We don't do it often.
We are. I'm not allowed to.
You're not allowed to. You're a hipster.
I get this swear jar money because I said damn.
Oh, you said damn. Okay. I didn't even know that was considered a swear. So there's my frame of reference.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you. So the last thing I want to mention on Game Awards, as always, which gets brought up every year, is the date. You know, when the show is held, their whole cutoff and all that. But I actually went in to look, and I'm like, let me just make sure I have my numbers right. And this is where I got really confused this year looking at this. So the cutoff of game release to be nominated for any award is November 18th, which is 2 days
Friday.
ago as we're recording this. It was Friday. That was the cutoff. They announced the nominees the beginning of the week on the 14th.
Yeah, and you had to have your nominees done by like the 3rd, I think.
You had to have your correct. You had to have your nominees done by the beginning of the month. Yet the cutoff for release is 3 weeks later, or nearly 3 weeks later. What?
Yeah,
how does that make sense?
It's from the mind of Mr. Keeley. I don't know what to tell you.
And think about it, right? Because it's November, beginning of November is a critical release point for games. I mean, there's always blockbusters at that point, right?
Yeah.
God of War snuck in because, you know, they get the review codes out. But you look at a game, and I'm not advocating for it, but you look at a game like Pentiment, which in theory released prior to the cutoff, right? It's not even discussed. It's not part of the conversation. It's sitting at an 86 meta. It got some 10s, whether you agree with them or not, but it's not even part of the conversation. And now, because of its release date, it can't be included next year at all.
Yep.
Well, neither can the Pokemons.
No, it just gets ignored. And it's like, how does this make sense? Who came up with this rule?
Well, like any normal award show, you would have it in the spring or late winter following the year of which you are evaluating. You put it in December because you want you can sell the commercials better for the Christmas holiday purchasing season. Everything Jeff Keighley does, and I am not a Jeff Keighley hater. I think it's great that he's out there drumming up positivity for video gaming. But everything that he has done is about ads and commercial interest because he's a one-man band with his production house. So it just shouldn't be called the Game Awards. Honestly, the stuff that I like the best about the Game Awards are like, I love the opening video every year. He really does a great job of like, we need to celebrate this as a medium. I always feel pumped. I think he does like a nice job with all that. But it should just be, video game, a celebration of games, video game palooza, whatever. And maybe we acknowledge some of the best stuff we saw that year. But like treating it as an award show is just silly. It's just silly.
Agreed.
I also want to point out last year, I don't think Hogue was on the show yet, but last year when we were talking about the Game Awards, I had talked about how I thought it was a strategic decision by Microsoft to release Halo Infinite when they did, to avoid the Game of the Year nominations, the discussion about it. And I just want to point out the release window paid off. They were not considered this year, even though they're technically in the window. They got released in December. And there you go. I honestly think that's like going to be a play now. Is some people, if you have sky high expectations, the strategy is just to release like in this weird window where you don't qualify for either of them. That way you don't have to feel like, you don't win or whatever. So
yeah, I don't know. It's a strange.
I think the last time Halo Infinite was nominated and won most anticipated game in like 2019. It was something like that. And I think that's the only one it's going to win. Like Halo Infinite should be nominated for something. You know what I mean? Like it should be in the conversation. I think it was one of my favorite games last year. But it, doesn't meet the nomination window. It's crazy.
No, technically it would be in this year, but I can tell you it's a higher reviewed game than Stray.
It's a higher reviewed game than Stray. It's higher reviewed than a lot of those games in there.
It is.
It's hilarious to me that like now it's kind of
Hogue's face is killing me.
I know you disagree on this one.
The beauty is you get out of that. So I think Ragnarok's going to have this even sooner than most. But you get out of the shinies window, people start to think about what was actually presented to them, and those numbers get a little bit further afield. The Ragnarok numbers are going to look like morons took over the gaming industry in the fall of 2022 in like 6 months.
Yeah, what I was highlighting though, Hogue, is the difference is that Sony's strategy a lot of the times is to be in those conversations, to live up to the hype, to be the face of doing that. And I think Microsoft, a lot of times, they see the hype playing against them when the expectations are so high. The only thing you can do is fail, right? You can't, because your expectation is if you get nominated and you win Game of the Year, then everybody goes, okay, well, you met expectations. But if you do anything else, it's a failure. And so I think a lot of times,
I don't know. See, to me, I know you don't love sports ball, Travis, but that's the coach that's playing not to lose the game. Right. I want more out of Microsoft. Believe in yourself.
No, I do too. I'm highlighting their strategy behind it. I think it was intentional. They want the window to be like, let's just avoid that fight. Right. Let's just release.
I think it was intentional. I think it was to hit their fiscal year or their quarter reports. But yeah, look, I don't, these things don't matter that much in my opinion. I don't know that they drive sales. I don't know that they drive anything from the Game Awards. So we'll see.
I think it probably drives interest a little bit. There's at least some of that. And I think you're right that they did it to hit the fiscal year, but the multiplayer dropped on November 15th. Remember? It came out.
I do remember.
It came out early, and they could have released the entire. I'm sure they could have released the entire game at that time. It had gone gold like a month before that. I honestly think they just pushed it because they were like, let's not have this conversation right now. This is the last thing we need with Halo Infinite after the release last year. And I don't think it's a particularly ambitious or forward-thinking strategy, but it is an interesting one, and I don't think they're the only ones doing it.
Hey, that is fine. If you got to get out of the eye of Jeff Keighley's Sauron Tower, that's fine. But this one was just when I saw those, it was Stray. I don't know what to do with you. I
don't either. It's bizarre. It's literally bizarre. By the way, we got Pompa in the house with a $10 super chat.
Yeah, remove Stray and add Grounded. 3 games that Travis has reviewed.
Yeah, then we'd be at 50% Travis games. That's what I'm saying.
I advocated for Grounded. I would have. People Game Awards put out what are your 6 nominees, and I was trying to guess what they would pick. And I thought Grounded would be the Xbox representative.
I actually think Grounded got taken out of the running, kind of probably unintentionally, not because of the lack of people who played it, but because of the model in which it released. I think that if you release a game in in early access, and then you do the 1.0 a year later after people kind of thought about you last year, you sort of just nobody even thinks about those types of games. So
Grounded
I think,
was in longer than that, right? Grounded was
it was in for 2 years. 2 years, yeah. So I actually played it once at launch, and then I played it once last year for preview, and then I played it for the review this year. And the first 2 times it was completely forgettable. I was like, I don't think anybody's going to play this game. And then when I reviewed it, I was like, oh damn, they finished this game and it's way better, and I'm still playing it. So I think if you release early access, you sort of already agreed that you're not going to go for this sort of accolades and game of the year stuff, because it almost never happens.
Yeah, we'll revisit this conversation after the show, of course, and we'll talk about it. But I think we should have a broader conversation on what game of the year even represents, because if you think about the past winners, right, and the variations in what they are, it doesn't seem to be there's no clear definition of what that is, right? Is it impact? Is it what's new? Is it evolution? Does it drive change in the industry? Is it production quality? Is it Metacritic? There's all these different kind of things that fall into whatever game of the year represents. I'd love to talk with you guys about that.
Yep.
But we are well beyond that time today. So we'll circle back with the Game Awards after the Game Awards, and we'll have kind of a pre-holiday show about it and have a nice long discussion about that, because I think that'll be fun. But anyway, that's going to go ahead and wrap us up for today, I believe. It's been a joy as always, chat. You've been awesome as always. For us, just remember that we've got our YouTube channel memberships up. You can check those out if you want to support Season Gaming. Last Saturday, I did a Halo community night. I did not do one last night, but we're going to do one this week over the Thanksgiving holiday. So stay tuned for that. And new contributor at Season Gaming I announced, and some new reviews and articles as well. So just stop by over there as always and check things out. I will circle
Do you want to
down.
talk about next week?
I was just going to ask you in private chat, so I'm glad you brought it up verbally, because
Cool.
we are not doing a show next week, right?
I believe so. I believe that's
We're
correct.
not. We're taking it off.
Okay.
You want to blame
Yes.
me? I am the one that asked for it. You can blame me as much as you want.
Damn it, Hogue.
No, it's fine. I'm trying to take the second half of next week off,
Dude,
as much
I
as
would
possible.
have just shown up.
Yeah, he'll be here. Yeah, I'll be given the keys. It'll just be Dan. He'll be streaming PGA 2K 2022
And Hades.
And also Hitman 3. It's actually a mix of Hitman and I made my guy look just like him.
It's just show up for that. But no, I did. I asked. I said, you know what? I got family stuff. We got people in town. So we're taking next Sunday off. And then at my channel, I'm also taking the back half of the week off as well.
Good. Yeah. So Thanksgiving long week here for people in America. Usually people in the corporate world take off either the week or kind of Wednesday through Sunday type things. So no show next week. But stay tuned for other content on the channel. But we will be back in 2 weeks. Travis, what you got?
I will be working all week this week. But it is a little slower now that sort of the reviews are the review period for me, because I'm usually a month ahead. So now, even though it's a really busy month for everyone else, it's kind of light for me because I'm living in December. Last year around this time, I was reviewing games such as Nerf Legends. So we'll see if any of those gems come out during this period. But it's a little slower for me. You can read my review of Goat Simulator 3.
Very funny.
On IGN.com. It's a fantastic game. I had such a good time with it. I posted that review knowing that I gave Goat Simulator 3 a silly joke game with the title that's wrong objectively, a higher score than Sonic Frontiers, which is another game I really liked. But say you gotta
I hadn't put those together, but
exactly. Well, you can see the timeline at the bottom of IGN. It shows like the last 3 games they reviewed, and you see like Goat Simulator 8, and then right below that Sonic Frontier 7. And Tom was like, "You're sure you want me to press yes?" And I was like, "Bring it on. Let them cry." But yeah, it doesn't have nearly the same. They're both good games. You should play them both. But yeah, I've got a preview coming up I can't talk about. And then reviews I'm assuming that will happen, but I'm going to be catching up on games, and you can follow me on Twitter at TyGuyTravis if you want to hear me talk about some of them. I
want you to play Immortality, and I want a long form discussion with you on social media or otherwise.
Yeah, so Immortality, Pentiment, Modern Warfare. I want to play at least a couple matches of the Warzone. There's
Ragnarok.
other stuff on there. Ragnarok is actually at the bottom of the list. I think it's number 6, but I have an order of operations. I'm trying to be efficient with my time. Ragnarok is on there. I will be getting to it. And I guess now that it got nominated, I also have to play Stray. I wasn't expecting to have to play that one. I try to play every game that gets nominated, but
you might be able to squeeze that entire game in before.
Exactly. That's my thinking. Is I'm just gonna like blam through that thing, and then that way when I say it doesn't deserve a slot, I can at least be an informed person. I really hate not being informed about stuff, but I have a new problem this year, which is that I've reviewed so many games this year. I have had almost no time to work on my backlog, and usually there's gaps. But this year I'm on pace to be the highest volume reviewer at IGN, and that has left me with practically no time to play the games I want to. So it's been a fun year. Yeah. Anyway, that's me. Sorry, I rambled.
No, you're good. You're good. And thank you. Gamefire says, hit the like button on your way out, please. Yes, that would be greatly appreciated. Hogue, going to take some time, well-deserved time, I might add, sir, later this week. But what's going on with you?
Yeah, we'll be doing Hangouts and Headlines for Monday and Tuesday at least, I think. And then any virtual legalities that pop up. We were covering a lot of Elon Musk versus Twitter stuff at the end of last week. And we continue to have Microsoft and Activision bandying about and bouncing around with their news articles. We also want to potentially cover some of the stuff happening with respect to Blizzard and Activision in China and their contract with NetEase, which I still kind of have half researched, half prepped for a video. And I don't know whether we'll get to it this week or not. So I don't want to make promises. But that's the kind of stuff we cover in virtual legality. As well as in December, I bring in my game developer brother who currently works for Bethesda. And we talk about our favorite games of the year. And his list is always super weird because he doesn't get to play as much as I do, honestly. So he'll have a lot of indie darlings. It'll just be a Dan list from my brother. But we'll be setting that up for December. Games to avoid for Dan. Come check it out at Hoglaw on YouTube or at Hoglaw on Twitter, where I continue to celebrate my undefeated Michigan Wolverines. Got a little close there yesterday. But we're going into the Ohio State game undefeated.
Excellent, man. Good luck. Yeah. Is that when is that game?
Next week.
Next Saturday is undefeated Ohio State versus undefeated.
So that's why he wanted Sunday off. He's gonna have over. Let's go.
Yeah.
I wanted
He's either
Sunday
gonna be because if sobbing or celebrating.
Yeah, if I have to.
The horseshoe. They both look like ass yesterday, so it doesn't really matter.
They sure did, Dan.
Yeah, yes, they did. I watched them both.
All right. Guys, chat, thank you very much. Anyone tuning in later and listening to us, of course, thank you very much. As just to reiterate, we will be gone next week, which makes December 4th the next show when we will see you back. So
enjoy your turkey.
Yeah, hope everyone in the U.S. who celebrates Thanksgiving has a good weekend full of family, food, friends, football, Fast and Furious. Hopefully not, but otherwise, otherwise,
it is family. It's about family. It's a Thanksgiving movie.
There you go. That's the whole crux of it. So have a good week. We will see you in a couple weeks. Appreciate you as always. Take care. Until later.